Chapter 1710. The old black that the little lowly mentioned was none other than the big black dog. Ever since Little Purple appeared, Little Black was subdued. Not only did he condescend to become Little Purple's exclusive mount, he was also quite obedient. It couldn't be helped. Even the big black dog himself didn't know why he was so afraid of Little Purple. In fact, the little black dog wasn't afraid of Little Purple. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so obedient and willingly become Little Purple's mount. As for the specific reason, the big black dog himself didn't know. The little lowly also didn't want to know the reason. She only knew that the big black dog listened to Little Purple. Therefore, he had always wanted to find a mount. However, after searching for a long time, she still couldn't find one that suited her. At this time, Xianhua's performance made the little lowly very satisfied. At this time, the little lowly was already fantasizing about riding Xianhua, the true lord of the evil demon clan, in the sky. Seeing Muronyu actually spit out, Yang Hao couldn't help but look at him in shock. At the same time, he asked, "Muronyu, what are you doing? It seems very funny. Do you know who Old Black is?" "He is." Muronyu smiled and told the relationship between Old Black and Little Purple. After listening, Yang Hao was first stunned, then burst into laughter without caring about his image. And Xianhua's face turned green. In any case, he was the true lord of the evil demon clan. If he became the little lowly's mount, then he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself. Therefore, Xianhua solemnly said to the little lowly, "Unparalleled beauty in the heavens and the earth. The moon shames the flowers, the fish and the geese fall, the super invincible little beauty. I'm really sorry, but I can't be your friend." The little lowly's smile immediately disappeared. "You really don't want to?" Xianhua nodded solemnly. When it came to his face and dignity, he would never compromise. The little lowly's face was extremely gloomy as she stared at Xianhua. Staring at Xianhua, she was extremely nervous. And Muronyu was also worried that the little lowly would get angry and kill Xianhua. Therefore, he was about to speak. However, at this moment, the gloomy expression on the little lowly's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by a radiant smile. "Xianhua, you will definitely become my mount. I swear that I will make you my mount." Hearing this, Muronyu and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Especially Xianhua, who secretly wiped away the cold sweat that had just appeared. The little lowly gave him too much pressure. He was afraid that the little lowly would kill him. This time, Xianhua no longer dared to casually provoke the little lowly. "Big bad guy, you want to unify the human race." Let me tell you, in the era when the Supremes didn't appear and when the experts on the Saint rankings dominated, there were at least 2 experts on the Saint rankings who were ranked in the top 10. At least, Muronyu and the other 2 were slightly surprised. Did that mean that there were at least 2 humans in the top 10 of the Saint rankings? Or even more? The little lowly nodded. "Do you know who this Saint ranker of the Human Race Alliance is?" "He's Dongmin Li Xuan, ranked 3rd on the Saint rankings." 3rd on the Saint rankings? Yang Hao and Xianhua's faces turned green. An expert of this level could easily wipe out the angels and fiends. What was laughable was that they had previously threatened to destroy the Human Race Alliance. This was simply a slap in the face. As their faces turned green, they secretly rejoiced. They rejoiced that Muronyu hadn't rashly attacked the Human Race Alliance. Otherwise, even Muronyu would have been killed. Murongyu's face also turned serious. Even if he had the Xianyuan sword now, he might have the strength to fight against the 4th expert on the Saint rankings, but he definitely wasn't a match for the 3rd expert on the Saint rankings. "I despise you guys too much. I'm not afraid. So what are you afraid of?" Seeing Muronyu and the other 2's expressions, the little lowly immediately revealed a look of disdain. Muronyu rolled his eyes. He was now certain that the little lowly was the descendant of some Supremes. Such a person didn't even need to be afraid of Supremes, let alone a mere expert on the Saint rankings. The 3 of them weren't so sure. They had no background and no backing. Moreover, they had families to feed. In particular, Xianhua and Yang Hao were the true lord ranks of the demons and angels respectively. They could disregard their own lives, but they had to think of their entire race. After all, they weren't like Murong Yu, who could leave in a huff. It would be difficult to find Murong Yu's location even if they wanted to seek revenge. Don't be afraid. The guy listens to me. As long as I'm here, he definitely won't dare to do anything to you. Big Baddie, do you really want to unify the Human Race Alliance? I'll ask him to come forward and give you the position of Alliance leader. The little lowly patted her shriveled chest that had just begun to develop as she vowed solemnly. However, how could Murong Yu and the other two believe her? Seeing Murong Yu and the other two's expressions, the little lowly knew that they wouldn't believe her. Thus, she snorted coldly and took a step forward. Her figure had already disappeared into Hichu Luo Shu. Hichu Luo Shu could confine most people, but it didn't have any defenses against the little lowly and little purple. They could enter and leave as they pleased. This was what made Murong Yu helpless. Not good. Murong Yu's expression changed slightly. He immediately rushed out of Hichu Luo Shu. However, the little lowly had already rushed out of Big Dipper Mountain. Dongmen Li Xuan, come out right now. Otherwise, I'll tear apart your Human Race Alliance. The little lowly carried a giant axe on her shoulder and shouted to the Human Race Alliance that was shrouded in layers of fog. Who dares to cause trouble in the Human Race Alliance? Do you have a death wish? Before the little lowly's voice fell, an angry roar came from within Big Dipper Mountain. At the same time, a ferocious giant soared into the sky. He turned into a stream of light and smashed through billions of voids, violently crashing into the little lowly. In fact, Murong Yu even saw the huge man send a fierce punch towards the little lowly while he was still in the air. Murong Yu immediately mourned his heart. He wasn't mourning for the little lowly, but for the giant. Did he think that the little lowly was easy to bully just because she was a kid? Soon, he would pay the price. As expected, the little lowly was enraged. She didn't even look at the giant as she slashed out with her giant axe. After a puff sound, there was no more after. That expert from the Human Race Alliance had already been killed to the point where not even his ashes were left. After the giant, many people from the Human Race Alliance followed him out. At this time, when they saw the little lowly kill the huge man with a single swing of her axe, they were all stunned. They stopped in their tracks and didn't dare to come closer. However, they had already informed the higher-ups of the Human Race Alliance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another flew out from the great alliance of the human race. The crowd included Feng Yongji and the other holy lords of the various holy lands. There were also the experts from various races who had come to inquire about the situation and hadn't left the Big Dipper Mountain. They all looked at the little lowly in shock. They were all shocked by the little lowly's words. They weren't shocked because the little lowly said that she wanted to destroy the Human Race Alliance. They were shocked because of the name that the little lowly mentioned, Dongmen Li Xuan. He was ranked 3rd on the holy rankings. This was an extremely mysterious super expert. Everyone on the Saint rankings was extremely familiar with this name. However, almost no one knew who he was or what race he was from. Now that the little lowly suddenly said this, could it be that the person ranked 3rd on the holy rankings was in the Human Race Alliance? Dongmen Li Xuan was a human expert? If that was the case, didn't that mean that there were 2 humans in the top 10 of the holy rankings? Unlike the shocked crowd, Feng Yongji and the other holy lords of the various holy lands had extremely ugly expressions. In the entire human race, only holy lords like them had the right to know about Dongmen Li Xuan. They all knew how important Dongmen Li Xuan was, so they definitely wouldn't reveal it. Then, how did the little lowly find out? Little girl, what are you yelling about? Hurry up and leave. Feng Yongji snorted. He definitely wouldn't admit Dongmen Li Xuan's existence now. Originally, they were already filled with anger when their disciples were captured by Murong Yu. Now that Dongmen Li Xuan's existence had been exposed, they were even more enraged. Old man, you're the Alliance Master of the Human Race Alliance? Dongmen Li Xuan, if you don't come out now, do you believe that I won't kill this stupid Alliance Master? The little lowly said arrogantly with her giant axe. Feng Yongji's face immediately darkened. His ranking on the holy rankings was extremely high. Did she think that she could kill him just because she wanted to? This little girl was too arrogant. If it was any other time, he would have just laughed it off. However, there were too many things that had made him angry these past few days. Therefore, how could he be nice to the little lowly? Little girl, where are your parents? If you don't take them back, don't blame me for being rude. A cold light flashed in Murongyu's eyes. He took a step forward and stood in front of the little lowly. He had already taken out the Xianyuan sword. If Feng Yongji dared to make a move, he would definitely give him a vicious blow. The little lowly was furious. She pulled Morongyu away and said angrily, I'm so angry. Dongmin Li Xuan, since you're not going to come out, I'll destroy your stupid human race alliance. As she spoke, she was about to make a move. Even Murong, you couldn't stop her in time. Feng Yongji's eyes flashed with a cold light. His body emitted a strong, killing intent. He actually wanted to kill the little lowly. It was about to happen. However, just as Murongyu was about to make a move and Song Tian and the others were secretly increasing their strength, a dramatic scene happened in front of everyone. "Sigh, my lady, can't you just let me cultivate in peace?" Unknowingly, an extremely handsome young man appeared between Murongyu and Feng Yongji. However, this young man had a pained and helpless expression on his face. A trace of shock flashed through Murongyu's eyes. This was because even with the help of the Xianyuan sword, he didn't notice how this young man appeared. "Senior brother Dongmin?" A series of exclamations could be heard. Feng Yongji and the others were looking at the handsome young man who appeared out of thin air in shock. Dongmin Li Xuan Li Xuan's Li Xuan. Li Xuan Li Xuan's Yayan Li Xuan? Who's behind the little lowly? Murongyu thought to himself. You and all of you. If anyone dares to harm my great aunt, I don't care who you are or what your background is. I will kill you. I, Dongmin Li Xuan, swear to the heavens. After looking at Feng Yongji coldly, Feng Yongji's gaze swept across the crowd as he swore in a cold voice. Shock! Shock! Everyone was shocked. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on the little lowly. This is incredible. We must remember this little girl's face and never offend her in the future. Otherwise, no one will be able to withstand the pursuit of Dongmin Li Xuan, who is ranked 3rd on the Saint rankings. After all, Dongmin Li Xuan had already swore to the heavens. No one would doubt whether his words were true or false. That's more like it. Although the little lowly wasn't very satisfied with her violent personality, she couldn't wait for more people to come and kill her. After all, most of them would be killed by her. After hearing Dongmin Li Xuan's words, not many people dared to touch the little lowly. However, at least some of the stronger people did not dare to touch the little lowly. Otherwise, they would have to suffer Dongmin Li Xuan's wrath. Dongmin Li Xuan, I want to be the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance. What do you think? The little lowly instantly forgot about Feng Yongji and pulled Murongyu along as she looked at Dongmin Li Xuan with a smile. Seeing this, Feng Yongji and the others' hearts skipped a beat. They did not know why, but they had a bad feeling in their hearts. How can the position of alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance be taken so easily? Everyone, including Murongyu, had the same thought. They all thought that Dongmin Li Xuan would reject the little lowly's rude request. However, what surprised them was that Dongmin Li Xuan agreed without hesitation. Isn't it just the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance? As long as you are a member of the human race, you can take the position. Then, from today onwards, Murongyu, you will be the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance. Dongmin Li Xuan looked at Murongyu and said formally. Just like that, I became the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance? Murongyu looked at Dongmin Li Xuan in shock. Dongmin Li Xuan nodded as if he was not joking. Senior brother Dongmin. Murongyu was shocked, but Feng Yongji was anxious. Murongyu was originally their enemy, but in the blink of an eye, he became their superior. Wasn't this too dramatic? Dongmin Li Xuan turned his head and glanced at Feng Yongji and the others. Then, he said, You're not willing? Of course, Feng Yongji and the others were not willing. It was not easy to kick out the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance, but not long after, the position of alliance leader was returned to the hands of the alliance leader. Most importantly, Murong Yu had captured many of their disciples. I am a fair person. Since you're not willing, you can challenge Murong Yu. As long as you defeat him, you can become the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance. As he said that, Dongmin Lishuan looked at Murong Yu meaningfully. Although Murong Yu was only a stage 2 chaotic ancestor sage, the aura that he had just released had shocked him. Feng Yongji and the others were indeed strong, but they were definitely not Murong Yu's match. Because of this, Dongmin Lishuan proposed a more fair solution. Otherwise, he would not be able to get past Little Lowly. Feng Yongji and the others were silent. Even if they took out their supreme weapons, they were still not Murong Yu's match. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sullenly accepted Murong Yu's unfair terms. Challenge him? Murong Yu would probably be more than happy for them to challenge him, right? That way, Murong Yu would have the opportunity to kill them openly. However, if they did not challenge him, they would become Murong Yu's subordinates in the future. I admit that I am not Murong Yu's match. Therefore, I will not challenge him. However, what about the matter between us? Can we write it off? Hearing Feng Yongji's words, Little Lowly was immediately unhappy. Old man, aren't you too shameless? Isn't it just 2 supreme weapons? Do you believe that I will make you take out 3 supreme weapons like Song Tian? Since that is the case, Feng Yongji, take out 3 supreme weapons. Murong Yu, will you let go of the true martial sacred halls people? Murong Yu was about to collapse from laughter. How could he not be willing? Therefore, he nodded repeatedly. However, Feng Yongji was in for a tragedy. He felt that he had been wronged. Didn't he just say one sentence? How come there's another supreme being? Seeing this, Bai Luo and the others did not say anything. In front of Murong Yu, they would also increase their supreme weapons. Only Song Tian was overjoyed at this moment. There was no other reason but because Feng Yongji was the same as him. In the following time, Dongmin Lishuan dismissed the onlookers and entered Tiangang Mountain with Murong Yu, Feng Yongji, and the others. In a daze, Murong Yu took over the entire Human Race Alliance and became the Alliance Master of the Human Race Alliance. However, for the time being, Murong Yu's position as Alliance Master was nothing more than a decoration. This was because the 9 Great Saint Lands would not listen to his commands. If these people did not cause trouble for Murong Yu behind his back, Murong Yu would be happy. Under Dongmin Lishuan's power, except for Song Tian, everyone handed over the saint artifacts that Murong Yu had requested. What surprised Murong Yu was that the true martial temple was indeed a rich and overbearing saint lands. Feng Yongji actually took out 3 supreme weapons that did not recognize an owner. It was not difficult for the other saint lands to take out 2 supreme weapons. Song Tian was the only one who dilly-dallied. In the end, he even left the Astral Mountain without giving Murong Yu a single supreme weapon. However, Murong Yu was not in a hurry. In any case, most of the people on Cloud Piercing Island were in his hands. He was not afraid that Song Tian would not exchange. Alliance leader, I will take my leave first. If you have any orders in the future, immediately send a message to me. Our true martial temple will definitely rush over as soon as possible. After Murong Yu took over the Human Race Alliance, Feng Yongji took the disciples of the true martial temple and left. Our Tiangang sect is also going back. The others all said their goodbyes and went back. Murong Yu, I will remember this. If you need any help in the future, just let us know. Our unparalleled palace will definitely do it. Other than unparalleled palace master Lin Gyun, who was sincere, Murong Yu did not care about the words of the other Saint Land Saint Lords. These guys hated Murong Yu to death. Why would they listen to his orders? The 2 supreme weapons and their countless years of savings were all in Murong Yu's pocket. They really wanted to return to their respective treasure vaults. However, would Murong Yu give it to them? Absolutely not. Therefore, they left with an intense hatred for Murong Yu. As for the unparalleled palace, not only did Murong Yu release all their disciples, he even returned the 2 supreme weapons and their treasure vault untouched. Chapter 17:12. Other than cloud-piercing island, everyone from the 9 great holy land had left Sky Dipper Mountain. No one knew where Song Tian had gone. Many disciples from cloud-piercing island were still imprisoned in Hichu Luo Shu. Even Xianhua, Yang Hao, and the rest had been sent back by Murong Yu. After all, they were the true lord rank of the angel race and the evil demon race. This time, in order to help Murong Yu, almost all the experts on the saint ranking had been mobilized. It wasn't a problem for them to leave for a short period of time. However, if they stayed for a long time, their race would be in danger. After all, even if they were all sacred clans, each race wasn't very good. Stories of devouring other races were happening almost every day. This meant that Murong Yu was the only one left in Sky Dipper Mountain. Dongmin Lishuan had already left, and the little lowly had been captured by him. Of course, he hadn't really captured her. Sky Dipper Mountain's mountain protecting array is not bad. If it's fully activated, even an honorable martial artist wouldn't be able to destroy it. At this moment, Murong Yu was floating in the sky of Sky Dipper Mountain alone. Looking down at Sky Dipper Mountain, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. The more powerful the array, the more terrifying the resources it would consume after activation. Before this, because no one knew that it was because of the Human Race Alliance, no experts came to attack Sky Dipper Mountain. Moreover, even if there were experts who attacked Sky Dipper Mountain, they would be killed or repelled by the experts of the Human Race Alliance. Therefore, the Human Race Alliance's mountain protecting array had never been activated. It was because of this that when Feng Song Qiong attacked back then, it seemed so weak. With a thought, the Mountain Sea Secret Realm separated from the Mountain Sea Scripture. Then, under Murong Yu's control, it appeared in Sky Dipper Mountain. At this moment, Shenzhen was absolutely safe. First of all, with the protection of Sky Dipper Mountain's mountain protecting array, ordinary people wouldn't be able to break it. Even if the mountain protecting array was destroyed, they still had the Mountain Sea Secret Realm. It could be said to be extremely safe. However, Shenzhen and the others could only stay in the Mountain Sea Secret Realm. A thought flashed through Murong Yu's mind. He then summoned the Mountain Sea Scripture's artifact spirit, the Mountain Sea Scripture, and asked, "Mountain Sea, is there a way to merge the Mountain Sea Secret Plane and the space inside Tiangang Mountain?" The Mountain Sea condensed into a human form and shook his head. After all, they are 2 different spaces. It is impossible for them to truly merge. It could only be a partial fusion. Furthermore, once it fused with this space, it would no longer be able to return to the Mountain and Sea Scripture. In other words, he would not be able to take them away in the future. Holy Lord, are you sure you want to fuse with it? Murong Yu shook his head. If that was the case, then the losses would outweigh the gains. The precious thing about the Mountain Sea Secret Realm was that it could be taken away at any time. If it was fixed and couldn't be taken away, he might as well not have it. I can only build a teleportation tunnel between the Mountain Sea Mystic Realm and the Big Dipper Mountain. Although the essence chi of heaven and earth in the Mountain Sea Secret Realm is not bad, it is an independent space after all. It is inferior to the Holy World. Murong Yu thought to himself as he began to build a teleportation array. To the current Murong Yu, building a teleportation array was just a small matter. Therefore, it did not take more than 2 hours to complete the construction. When they heard the news, the entire Shenzhen cheered. Although the Mountain Sea Secret Realm was huge, it was an independent space after all. Moreover, they couldn't enter and leave freely. Now, not only did they have the Big Dipper Mountain, but they could also leave the Big Dipper Mountain and walk around the Holy World. Of course, leaving the Big Dipper sect meant that they would be killed or captured by others. At the beginning, Murong Yu had told everyone in Shenzhen that they would no longer restrict their freedom. They could enter and leave the Big Dipper Mountain freely. However, if they were killed or captured outside and used to threaten Shenzhen, Murong Yu wouldn't care. They had to bear the risks themselves. After all, Murong Yu had already done his best. No matter how good it was, Murong Yu didn't know how to do it, nor did he have the energy to do it. Murong, if we let them enter and leave freely like this, won't others be able to enter and leave freely once they know how to enter and leave? If that's the case, Shenzhen won't be safe at all. In the Great Hall that originally belonged to the Human Clan Alliance, Murong Yu, Zhao Jiqing, the higher-ups of Shenzhen, Huining Hao, and the other disciples of the Unbroken Path were all gathered here. The person who spoke was Zhao Jiqing. I've already considered this point. Therefore, the souls of all Shenzhen's disciples must be imprinted in the entire formation. Only those who read the soul imprint can enter. Otherwise, they will be killed immediately by the formation, Murong Yu replied with a smile. He had already considered this point. Although it's much safer this way, we can't completely eliminate them. Once their souls are controlled, outsiders can also enter. The eldest disciple of the Unbroken Path, Zhong Mingji, said with a frown. In this regard, Murong Yu could only express his helplessness, not to mention a mere formation. Even Supremes wouldn't be able to tell that those whose souls were controlled by Murong Yu were in the same place. Although the formation was set up by Supremes, they weren't Supremes, right? No matter how many people come, we'll just kill them all, Murong Yu said with a faint smile. He didn't seem worried at all. Junior brother, what's the plan next? Lu Xiankai asked. Although Murong Yu was now the Alliance Master of the Human Clan Alliance, the way the Unbroken Path addressed Murong Yu hadn't changed. Shenzhen and the others also didn't change the way they addressed him. In their eyes, Murong Yu was still their junior brother and holy master. Even if Murong Yu really united the Human Clan in the future and became the master of the Human Clan, he would still be their junior brother and holy master. Murong Yu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he organized his words and said, "Next, we have two things to do. The first is to increase our strength. Whether it's you, me, or the entire Shenzhen, we have to increase our strength. Now that the situation is turbulent, everything depends on us." Murong Yu was a little worried. Why? He felt that the Holy Clan and the Devil Clan were getting restless. After all, the Holy Clan had never given up on destroying the Human Clan. Although the Devil Clan had once been allies with the Human Clan, they would definitely destroy the Human Clan if they had the chance. After all, no one would complain about having more territory. Zhong Mingji and the others nodded. Their thoughts were similar to Murong Yu's. However, Murong Yu's next words shocked them so much that they almost fell to the ground. My requirements are very low. Everyone here must rush into the holy rankings. Plop. Before Murong Yu could finish his sentence, Huiyin Inghao stumbled and fell to the ground. Little junior brother, aren't you being a little too forceful? Zhong Mingji said with a troubled expression. The others nodded in agreement. Not to mention the experts on the holy rankings, even Supremes and Sovereigns would want to reach that level. However, there were only so many experts of this level. It was too difficult for them to rush in. After all, they were all immortal existences. Unless the experts on the holy rankings died, they would usually stay on the holy rankings for a long time. You must make increasing your cultivation your lifelong goal. Of course, if you only work hard, you won't be able to become an expert on the holy rankings. Try everything you can to find treasures of heaven and earth like the heart of the ocean. If you have any news, I and the entire Shenzhen will support you. Moreover, I will do my best to help you. Everyone was still speechless. How many treasures like the heart of the ocean and the heart of ice were there in the holy realm? Even if they did exist, it would be extremely difficult to discover them. All right, let's not talk about this for now. Let's talk about the second matter. Am I not the alliance leader of the Human Race Alliance now? Although I can't command the other 8 holy lands now, we must control the ordinary factions as soon as possible. They will be an extremely powerful force when united. Everyone nodded. The human race wasn't weak. But why were they always suppressed by the sacred race? The reason was that the human race wasn't united. How much power could they have when they were scattered like sand? Every holy land has a large number of factions attached to them. And there are even weaker forces attached to the Holy Land's subsidiary forces, and so on and so forth. And it continues to extend. Let's not touch these factions first. Let's run over the factions that aren't part of the 8 Holy Lands. Let's start with the factions attached to the Infernal Society. I'll leave this matter to you, senior brothers. Murong Yu looked at Zhong Mingji and the others. Zhong Mingji and the others were overjoyed. In the past, They were stronger than Murongyu, but they were quickly surpassed by Murongyu. What made them depressed was the fact that they'd always been protected by Murongyu. This made them feel a little hurt. After all, the strong didn't want to live under the wings of others forever. Therefore, they were very happy that they had a chance to help Murongyu. We don't have to do anything, and people are already coming to submit. Let's go out and take a look. Murongyu suddenly stood up and disappeared from the main hall. Everyone also disappeared from the main hall. When Murongyu and the others appeared outside Big Dipper Mountain, they discovered that there were tens of thousands of experts standing outside. These people all had dignified expressions and powerful auras. It was obvious that they were people who had been in power for a long time. As soon as Murongyu appeared, these people all knelt down as if they had discussed this beforehand. We pay our respects to the alliance leader. Murongyu, Zhongmingji, and the others all had strange expressions on their faces. These people were obviously here to submit. However, Murongyu had never seen them before. However, since they were here to submit, Murongyu naturally wouldn't reject them. Therefore, a bright smile bloomed on his face like a flower. Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. Please come in. As he spoke, the layers of fog suddenly split open, and Murongyu, Zhongmingji, and the others walked in first. The leaders of the factions who had come to submit also rushed in without any hesitation. Before they submitted, they had already decided to hug Murongyu's thigh. They had considered all the possibilities that could arise. Therefore, even if Murongyu wanted to control them, they wouldn't hesitate. Chapter 17:13. Within the main hall of the Human Race Alliance. At this moment, apart from Murongyu, the Infernal Society, and Shenzhen's higher-ups, there were the factions that had come to surrender. There were not many of them, only around 100 or so. However, these 100 or so were all peak factions within the human race. Moreover, they were all peak factions that had no relationship with the other sacred lands. This included the Heaven-Suppressing Sect, which Murongyu had enmity with. The Heaven-Suppressing Sect's strength was very close to that of a sacred land, and they also had experts on the Saint rankings. However, they were far inferior to the experts on the Saint rankings. After all, the 10 sacred lands all had experts in the top 100 of the Saint rankings. Most importantly, the Heaven-Suppressing Sect did not have a sovereign artifact. Otherwise, the human race would not be the 10 sacred lands, but the 11 sacred lands. Of course, the 10 sacred lands only had a few sovereign artifacts, and it would be extremely difficult for the Heaven-Suppressing Sect to obtain one. Moreover, the Heaven-Suppressing Sect was not the strongest among the factions that had come to surrender. There were a few other peak factions that were similar to the Heaven-Suppressing Sect. In actuality, they were all peak factions that had come. This was because even if the weaker factions wanted to surrender, it would not be their turn yet. However, after this matter spread out, the factions that came to surrender would greatly increase. In response, Murongyu could only express his incomparable welcome. He did not threaten or intimidate them. These people had all taken the initiative to pledge their allegiance to Murongyu. All Murongyu needed to do was to sincerely accept them. If he controlled their souls or intimidated them, he would never be able to obtain the world or the hearts of the people. Just like Murongyu, he had used violence to rule, and then used benevolence to rule. Only then would he be able to obtain the recognition of the people. Everyone who had come to surrender could feel Murongyu's sincerity, so they all relaxed. At this moment, Murongyu told everyone about his reforms. Even though the Human Race Alliance had all sorts of systems, they were all outdated. For example, the position of Alliance Master was actually rotated, even though each Alliance Master would have an epoch of time. However, Murongyu found that every time a new Alliance Master took office, they would drastically change the system, causing the entire Human Race Alliance to be in chaos. There was no cohesion at all. Most importantly, such an Alliance Master did not have any decision-making power. This was because the other sacred lands did not listen. As such, after Murongyu took office, he began to think of all sorts of systems. The Alliance Master will have an Alliance Master, who will have the most decision-making power and the most authority. I will temporarily be the Alliance Master. Muronyu swept his gaze across everyone present and began to explain his system and plan. Under the Alliance Master, there will be two Vice Alliance Vice Masters. Vice Alliance's internal affairs. There is no conflict of power between the two sides. Their role is to do their part and assist the leader in ruling the Human Race Alliance. Hearing Murongyu's words, Yu Mengqing, Glory Sect, and the others couldn't help but roll their eyes. To put it nicely, Murongyu was dividing the power. To put it bluntly, these two Vice Alliance Masters were definitely set up by Murongyu to make it easier for him to just leave the work to others. Seeing the smiles on everyone's faces, the controllers of the various peak powers who had come to surrender felt baffled. Murongyu, on the other hand, knew the meaning behind their smiles. Thus, he laughed dryly. Just as everyone thought, the existence of the two Vice Alliance Masters was set up by him to handle the affairs of the Human Race Alliance. He did not have too much time to manage the Human Race Alliance. As for the Vice Alliance Masters, they will be Murongxian and Li Ling. Murongyu glanced at everyone again and said in a deep voice, Thud! Before Murongyu could finish speaking, an extremely discordant sound of a heavy object falling to the ground echoed through the hall. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw a handsome young man jumping up from the ground. Who else could this handsome young man be but Li Ling? Senior brother, why are you so excited? Gu Kai smiled foolishly and asked Li Ling in confusion. Li Ling was Murongyu's first disciple, and Gu Kai was Murongyu's second disciple in the desolate world. He had a pure heart. His cultivation speed was not inferior to Li Ling's war sage constitution. At this moment, both of them were peak Chaos Ancestral Saints and could charge into the Saint rankings at any time. Li Ling glared at Gu Kai. Junior brother, do you think I fell because I was excited? Isn't that so? I think you're quite suitable to be the Vice Alliance Master with your ability. Gu Kai scratched his head and smiled foolishly. This made Li Ling speechless. Master, this is too unfair. Our Human Race Alliance has many experts on the Saint rankings, right? I'm not qualified to be the Vice Alliance Master. I think Marshal Uncle Ian Gaoan is very suitable for this position. Otherwise, Master's wife can do it too. Li Ling stood up and immediately refused. What kind of person is this? Seeing Li Ling refuse the position of the Vice Alliance Master, the leaders of the forces who came to surrender were in a mess. Although the Vice Alliance Master was not the Alliance Master, he was still a powerful figure. Others could not do it even if they wanted to, but there was someone who refused? However, compared to those people, Shangzhen and the others had long expected this scene. Li Ling had the ability of a leader. With his ability, he was fully qualified to be the Vice Alliance Master. However, this guy was the same as Murongyu. He wanted to be a hands-off shopkeeper. Murongyu faintly smiled. He already knew that Li Ling would have such a reaction. However, since he had already done everything, how could he let Li Ling refuse? Besides, at this stage, no one was more suitable to be the Vice Alliance Master than Murongxian, and Li Ling Murongxian was steady and reliable and could handle the internal affairs. On the other hand, Li Ling had the divine war physique and was suitable to be the commander of the army. It would be a waste if he did not become the Vice Alliance Master. Thus, Murongyu smiled and said, Li Ling, you don't have to be the Vice Alliance Master. Li Ling was overjoyed. Just as he was about to thank Murongyu, Murongyu's following words made him roll his eyes. You don't have to be the Vice Alliance Master. Then go into seclusion immediately. If you don't have the strength of the top 10 on the holy rankings, you don't have to come out. Huh? Li Ling's expression changed slightly. Master, I was just joking. I'll be the Vice Alliance Master. Junior Murongxian and I will definitely manage the great alliance of the human race well. Li Ling did not want to be the Vice Alliance Master mainly because he did not want to be restrained. Murongyu's words were too lethal. Who knew if Li Ling had the strength of the top 10 on the holy rankings? If he did not have that strength, then wouldn't he never be able to come out? Under the Vice Alliance Master, there are the Elder Hall, Law Protector Hall, Punishment Hall, Achievement Hall, Welfare Hall, and Mission Hall. After confirming the Vice Alliance Master, Murong Yu continued. The Elder Hall had 10 Grand Elders. They would jointly manage all matters within the sect. Other than the Grand Elders, there was also a Hall Master. This person was Zhong Mingji. Under the Grand Elders, there were 100 ordinary elders. They were the middle-level leaders of the Elder Hall. Zhong Mingji had the ability to coordinate the overall situation. He was the best person to control the Elder Hall. The Law Protector Hall was similar to the Elder Hall. However, it was different from the Elder Hall. The Law Protector Hall was for external matters. It was for external matters. Any people or forces that came to attack the Human Race Alliance or the Human Race Alliance would be dealt with by the Law Protector Hall. Other than the Hall Master, the Law Protector Hall had 10 Grand Protectors and 100 Ordinary Protectors. It was the same as the Elder Hall. The Law Protector Hall was meant to protect the Human Race Alliance. The Hall Master of the Law Protector Hall was Yin Gaohan. With Yin Gaohan's personality and methods, he was the best candidate for this position. The Punishment Hall mainly dealt with the internal matters of the Human Race Alliance. Of course, it could also deal with matters outside of the Human Race Alliance. The Punishment Hall had 10 Grand Deacons and 100 Ordinary Deacons. The main Hall Master was the impartial Zhao Jiqing. The Achievement Hall could only record the merits and punishments of the disciples. As for the Welfare Hall, it was in charge of the distribution of the Human Race Alliance's various benefits. For example, pills, sane artifacts, and various other things. The Hall Master was Mu Liyue. Finally, there was the Mission Hall. As the name implied, the Mission Hall was in charge of distributing various missions and rewards. Among them, the Achievement Hall Master was Yu Mengqing. The Hall Master of the Mission Hall was Zhang Ao. These two halls were the same as the Law Protector Hall. Under the Hall Master were the 10 Grand Deacons and 100 Ordinary Deacons. Other than the Hall Masters, Murong Yu also appointed the 10 Grand Elders, Law Protectors, and Grand Deacons. These people were all Murong Yu's most loyal and devoted subordinates. After all, Murong Yu wanted absolute authority over the Human Race Alliance in his hands. As for the 100 Ordinary Grand Elders, Law Protectors, and Deacons, Murong Yu only appointed a few of them. However, the requirements were relatively high. They had to be at least peak primal chaos ancestor saints. It would be even better if they were experts on the saint rankings. 6 halls, a total of 600 Ordinary Grand Elders, Law Protectors, and Deacons. Murong Yu only appointed a portion of them. 10 of the people who had come to defect had been appointed. Moreover, these Ordinary Deacons had all come to defect. None of Shengzhen and the rest of the infernal agents could take up the mantle. Although they were only ordinary mid-level leaders, those who had been appointed were all unable to contain their excitement. One had to know that the Human Race Alliance wanted to unify the entire human race. In Big Dipper Mountain, they were only mid-level leaders. However, in the eyes of the entire human race, their statuses were incredible. At the very least, it was 1,000,000 times more impressive than their current positions. They were all people with real power. Although those who hadn't been appointed were envious, they weren't discouraged. This was because Murong Yu had clearly said that he still couldn't sense their loyalty. Moreover, these Ordinary Grand Elders, Law Protectors, and Deacons were all prepared for them. In other words, they all had the chance to become Deacons of the Human Race Alliance. Chapter 17:14. In fact, the Great Alliance of the human race had more than just these leadership positions. There were other positions below Ordinary Deacons. Moreover, these positions were only for the headquarters of the Great Alliance of the human race. In addition to the headquarters, the Great Alliance of the human race had 108 branches scattered throughout the human race. They were the 36 branches of the Heavenly Spirit Division and the 72 branches of the Earthly Fiend Division. However, these 108 branches had not been officially established yet. They were only part of Murong Yu's plan. After all, the current Great Alliance of the human race was not a true alliance. There were more than 100 peak forces that had come to defect. Apart from them, the forces controlled by the 9 Great Holy Lands could not defect at all. They had the opportunity to become deacons of the great alliance of the human race, as well as branch masters of the 108 branches. When this news spread from the mouths of those who had defected, the entire human race was in an uproar. Have you heard? As long as you are sincere in your loyalty and join the great alliance of the human race, not only will you have the opportunity to become an official, you will also be able to enjoy the benefits of the great alliance of the human race. There are all kinds of cultivation methods, all kinds of pills, and even sacred artifacts. Cultivation methods. What do we rogue cultivators like the most? Cultivation methods, pills, and sacred artifacts. And I heard that the great alliance of the human race can also open up those high-level cultivation methods. Those cultivation methods originally belonged to the 9 great holy lands. They are cultivation methods and battle skills that only the core disciples of the 9 great holy lands can cultivate. Now, as long as we join the great alliance of the human race and have enough contributions, we can directly cultivate these cultivation methods. Even if we become the most ordinary disciple of the great alliance of the human race, we will still enjoy a certain amount of pills, saint crystals, and other benefits. It's better than risking our lives every day. Brothers, what are we waiting for? If we don't join the great alliance of the human race now, when will we? Thus, countless hot-blooded rogue cultivators rushed towards the 108 branches of the great alliance of the human race. Although these branches had not been fully formed, Muronyu had already divided them up. Temporary branch strongholds were set up in 100 different cities. These 108 branches were located in different locations and connected to each other. Eventually, the entire human race would be under their control. Apart from rogue cultivators, the stronger and weaker forces began to defect and join the great alliance of the human race. He believed that it wouldn't be long before all forces other than those controlled by the 9 great holy lands would join the human race alliance. Muronyu had already appointed the candidates for the various positions. Therefore, he didn't need to do these things. His subordinates were already doing a good job. Bang! I'm so angry. Muronyu, that bastard, actually used our resources and our cultivation techniques to buy the hearts of everyone in the world. Damn it! Damn it! In a hall in the depths of true martial temple, an expert was furious and roared repeatedly. Other than the unparalleled palace's treasury, which was returned by Muronyu, the rest of the 9 great saint lands were all seized by him. However, Muronyu still managed to copy all the techniques from the unparalleled palace. Coupled with the treasury of the Human Race Alliance, Muronyu was being generous right now. However, there was nothing they could do. Try to snatch it back? They didn't dare. Not only were they no match for Muronyu, but there were also 2 super terrifying existences behind Muronyu. The 10th on the saint rankings, Yu Yangjia, and the 3rd on the saint rankings, Dongmen Lishuan. The relationship between the 2 was not something they could guess. They didn't even dare to stop the expansion of the Human Race Alliance, let alone take back their treasures. Therefore, they could only watch as countless saints and forces joined the Human Race Alliance. If this continued, the 9 great saint lands would be weakened. In the future, the human race would only have the Human Race Alliance as their only saint lands. The 9 great saint lands would be reduced to ordinary forces. They couldn't be compared to the Human Race Alliance at all, especially now that Muronyu still had more than 10 supreme weapons. What angered the 9 great saint lands the most was that Muronyu had already distributed those supreme weapons to Shenzhen's suitable disciples. With the help of Murongyu's time acceleration, those supreme weapons had all been successfully recognized as their masters. Muronyu had obtained 15 supreme weapons from the 9 great saint lands, plus 2 from the infernal path, Muronyu and Zhao Jiqing's saint weapons. Now, Shenzhen had more than 20 supreme weapons. In other words, the Human Race Alliance would have 20 supreme weapons from now on. This was extremely terrifying. Feng Yongji, aren't you angry? If the true martial temple wanted to attack the Human Race Alliance, the Human Race Alliance wouldn't be so impressive. In the main hall, Song Tian looked at Feng Yongji with a cold expression. He was the one who had just roared. Song Tian, if there's nothing else, you should go back and redeem your disciples. I'm going into seclusion. Feng Yongji looked at Song Tian indifferently. What Song Tian didn't notice was that Feng Yongji's eyes were filled with disdain and contempt. Feng Yongji already knew why Song Tian was here. Before coming to the true martial temple, Song Tian had already visited the other great saint lands. Their goal was the same, to persuade the other great saint lands to deal with Song Tian. However, the great saint lands didn't agree. Now, as long as there wasn't water in their brains, they wouldn't go against Murong Yu openly. That would be courting death. The other great saint lands were fine, but when Song Tian arrived at Unparalleled Palace, Lin Gyun, who already knew why Song Tian was here, directly threw him out. Feng Yongji's attitude was pretty good. In the end, Song Tian was thrown out of the true martial temple by Feng Yongji. You cowardly bastards, one day, I'll torture you to death. Murong Yu, Feng Yongji, just you wait. I'll make you regret it. Song Tian glared at the true martial temple viciously, then quickly disappeared. The 9 great saint lands didn't play any tricks, and the human race alliance's strength was growing at an extremely terrifying speed. At this moment, Murong Yu frowned slightly. The fire-eyed golden ape had already returned to his tribe in the demon race a long time ago. At this moment, his cultivation level had already reached the peak chaotic ancestor's saint realm. However, he didn't return immediately. A few days ago, he thought of a way to send a message to Murong Yu. Recently, the demon race had been acting strangely, and it seemed like they were going to send out troops. However, the fire-eyed golden ape couldn't say. He didn't know the more important things. Therefore, Murong Yu didn't know if the demon race was going to attack the human race or the sacred race. He only knew that the demon race was definitely not weaker than the human race. On the contrary, to a certain extent, they were even stronger than the human race. After all, the human race wasn't unified. If it were the demon race, they would have been unified long ago. Once the demon race sent out troops against the human race alliance might not be a match. After all, not only would the forces belonging to the 9 great saint lands not do anything, but they might even stab Murong Yu in the back. As for the sacred race, Murong Yu hadn't received any news about this for the time being, because everyone related to Murong Yu was in seclusion. Murong Yu's clone was in seclusion, trying to break through to the saint rankings. Relying on the Sun Sutra, Murong Yu's clone had already surpassed himself. Once he came out of seclusion, he would definitely charge into the saint rankings. Xianhua was also in seclusion to consolidate his cultivation and strive to increase his ranking on the saint rankings. As for Yang Hao, he hadn't obtained the angel's heart yet, but he was also working hard on his cultivation. Without these 2 patriarchs, Murong Yu had no way of knowing if the sacred race was planning to send out troops. Murong Yu also told Shengzhen and all the disciples of the Great Saint Alliance to improve their strength as quickly as possible. Murong Yu had also entered seclusion. Right now, Murong Yu's actual standing was comparable to the top 10 on the saint rankings. Once he used the Xianyuan sword to improve his cultivation, Murong Yu would have the strength to fight against the 4th on the saint rankings. However, his ranking was only around 90,000. Murong Yu guessed that using external forces to temporarily improve one's strength wouldn't change one's ranking on the saint rankings. Moreover, cultivation seemed to determine one's ranking on the saint rankings. Otherwise, with Murong Yu's current soul cultivation, it would be impossible for him to be ranked in the 90,000. A 7-star soul was already extremely high. After many years of seclusion, Murong Yu vaguely guessed that his soul cultivation had probably reached its limit. A 7-star soul corresponded to the primal chaos ancestor's saint realm. Once he broke through, he would reach the supreme realm and become a soul supreme. However, Murong Yu knew that it would be impossible for him to break through this last step in a short period of time. Therefore, he could only improve his cultivation now. In front of Shengzhen and the Infernal Society, Murong Yu is only a 2nd-stage primal chaos ancestor's saint realm. It was simply too weak. For a time, Murong Yu felt ashamed. As their sacred master and alliance leader, his cultivation was actually far inferior to theirs. Muronyu guessed that if he could reach the peak of the primal Chaos Ancestor Saint realm, his ranking on the Saint rankings would charge into the top 100. He might even charge into the top 10, or even the top 3. However, after a period of seclusion, Muronyu realized gloomily that he couldn't calm down to cultivate anymore. If he wanted to advance from the second stage Primal Chaos Ancestor Saint realm to the third stage Primal Chaos Ancestor Saint realm, he would need an extremely long time to have enough strength to break through. At the very least, he would need to refine a few supreme weapons before he could break through. However, Muronyu didn't have any extra supreme weapons on hand. Looks like it's time to leave the human race and explore other places. Muronyu helplessly stopped Hichu Luoshu's time acceleration and appeared in Big Dipper Mountain. Alliance leader, there's a self-proclaimed old friend of yours outside. He's called Lu Haotsong, and he's here to seek an audience. He said that he has an extremely urgent matter. We didn't let him see us, so he made a scene. However, we didn't dare to do anything to him. What do you think, Alliance leader? As soon as Muronyu appeared, a deacon of the Human Race Alliance walked over and bowed respectfully to Muronyu before speaking hastily. Lu Haotsong, quickly invite him over. Murongyu's eyes lit up as he took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. The deacon of the Human Race Alliance couldn't help but secretly wipe away the cold sweat on his forehead when he saw Murongyu's reaction. Fortunately, he didn't do anything to Lu Haotsong. Otherwise, Muronyu would have slapped him to death. Chapter 17:15. In the Big Dipper Mountain, in front of the layers of fog, a figure was walking back and forth anxiously. While walking, he looked into the depths of the fog with an anxious expression. This person was Lu Haotsong. In order to avoid being hunted down, he was forced to hide in the chaotic secret plane. When Muronyu accidentally entered the chaotic secret plane, he met him. Later, with the help of Lu Haotsong, Muronyu obtained a large number of chaotic saint veins. In the end, Muronyu even entered the holy world with the help of Lu Haotsong. Otherwise, if he had ascended, he would have been taken down by the Human Race Alliance long ago. How could he have the glory and status he had today? It could be said that although Lu Haotsong was only an undead stage saint, he was of great help to Muronyu. Naturally, Muronyu wasn't someone who didn't know how to be grateful. Therefore, when he knew that Lu Haotsong had come, he rushed out immediately. I don't know if this Muronyu is the Muronyu from before. I hope it's him otherwise. Lu Haotsong was anxious, but his face was a little gloomy. He had no choice but to do so. In the holy world, the only person he could ask for help was the leader of the Human Race Alliance, who seemed to be an old friend. If this Muronyu is not that Muronyu, Lu Haotsong would definitely be miserable. A mere profound sage dares to say that he is a friend of the leader of the Human Race Alliance? I am Moronyu's brother. Ha ha. At this moment, an arrogant voice sounded in Lu Haotsong's ears. The tone was full of disdain. Lu Haotsong was not the only one outside the Big Dipper Mountain. At this time, the outside of the Big Dipper Mountain was very lively. It could be said that there was a sea of people. These people were all here to try their luck and see if they could be accepted as a disciple by the powerhouses of the Human Race Alliance. Then, he soared into the sky. Lu Haotsong turned his head abruptly and glared at the sage who had spoken. But that was all. Lu Haotsong did not have any further reaction, because he was not in a mood to do so, nor did he have the strength to do so. The one who had mocked him earlier was an ancient sage, an entire realm higher than him. Lu Haotsong was no match for him. What? Do you still dare to refuse? Are you courting death? Oh, that's right. You're an old friend of the Alliance Master of the human race. Who would dare to touch you? The ancient sage chuckled and continued to taunt. The people beside Lu Haotsong also sneered. In their eyes, Lu Haotsong's method had been used by countless people. It was really too low level. In the end, all of them were blown away. Lu Haotsong also felt a little uneasy. He only looked anxiously at the interior of Tiangang Mountain and ignored those fools. Swoosh! Just as Lu Haotsong was hesitating, a figure appeared beside him out of thin air. "Old Lu, what's going on? Why didn't you inform me before you came?" The person who had appeared was Yu. At this moment, he was looking at Lu Haotsong with a smile. Lu Haotsong was stunned at first. Then, he was overjoyed. "Yu, I didn't expect it to be you. I didn't expect you to become the Alliance Master of the Human Race Alliance." Yu didn't say anything and merely smiled in response. Plop. However, just as Yu was smiling, Lu Haotsong accidentally knelt in front of him. Yu was shocked. Lu Haotsong had helped him so much. He had long regarded Lu Haotsong as his old friend. There is no need to kneel between friends. Moreover, even if he was a slave whose soul was controlled by Yu did not need him to kneel. With a thought, a huge and gentle force exploded from Yu's body and directly enveloped Lu Haotsong. Under the effect of this huge force, Lu Haotsong was lifted up. Then, Yu took a step forward and disappeared with Lu Haotsong. "What's going on?" The ancient sage who had mocked Lu Haotsong previously rubbed his eyes and then looked at the ancient sage next to him in confusion. Lu Haotsong was still here a moment ago. Why did he suddenly appear? And it seemed like he was taken away by someone. What surprised this ancient sage the most was that the black-robed young man who had appeared out of thin air seemed a little familiar. Don't you think that the black-robed young man looked a little similar to the Alliance Master? Just as the ancient sage was feeling bewildered, a sage not far away from him asked, "What do you mean by a little similar? That was the Alliance Master, okay? You must be blind. You can't even recognize the Alliance Master." An ancient sage said proudly, his eyes full of disdain for the people beside him. "Are you sure that was the Alliance Master of the Human Race Alliance?" Someone asked in disbelief. "Nonsense. I had the honor of meeting the Alliance Master once. Are you doubting my judgment?" The ancient sage immediately flew into a rage. He was very angry at the person who doubted his judgment. Plop! Before the ancient sage finished his sentence, the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground rang out. Everyone turned to look at the source of the sound, only to see that the ancient sage who had mocked Lu Haotsong earlier had already fallen to the ground. That person is actually the Alliance Master's old friend. I actually mocked him just now. The ancient sage's face was pale and his voice was trembling. His eyes were full of fear. "You're finished. You've offended the Alliance Master's old friend. If I were you, I would immediately run as far as I can." The ancient sage said mockingly, "Yes, I will run immediately." The ancient sage stood up with a pale face. Then, without looking back, he smashed through the void and quickly flew into the distance. Seeing this, the spectators were stunned. Then, they all fell silent. They sympathized with the ancient sage. Wasn't he courting death? It was a classic case of courting death. Do you think the Alliance Master will kill him? An ancient sage approached the ancient sage who had spoken just now. The Alliance Master is a magnanimous person. Why would he care so much? However, I don't know about his friend. The ancient sage said without hesitation. Back in the main hall, Yu looked at Lu Haotsong with an ugly expression. "Old Lu, what happened? This guy actually knelt down just now." In Yu's mind, Lu Haotsong was definitely a strong person. Back then, when he was chased into the primal chaos secret plane, he was still so strong. Yu had never seen him complain. But today, he actually knelt down. Lu Haotsong must have encountered something urgent and unsolvable. "Yu, please save my wife and child. You're the only one who can save them now. I beg you." Lu Haotsong said, and was about to kneel down. "Wife and child?" Yu looked at Lu Haotsong in surprise. At the same time, he supported Lu Haotsong, not letting him kneel again. What he found strange was that Lu Haotsong didn't have a family. Did he marry this wife and child after returning to the Holy World? However, this wasn't a problem. Since it was Lu Haotsong's wife and child, Yu would definitely help. "Don't be in a hurry. Speak slowly." Yu signaled Lu Haotsong not to be in a hurry. This guy only knew to ask Yu to save people, but he didn't explain things clearly. How could Yu save people? Lu Haotsong nodded. then pondered for a while. After organizing his words, he slowly spoke. It turned out that after Blood Rain ancestor was killed, Lu Haotsong could be considered to have avenged his great hatred. Back then, he had left Morongyu to explore the world on his own. Very quickly, he had met an ordinary woman. Then, the two of them fell in love at first sight and got together. Not long ago, they even gave birth to the fruit of their love. Originally, Lu Haotsong thought that their simple life would pass just like that. Although it was ordinary, it was very happy. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. Originally, they lived at the foot of an ordinary mountain. However, many years ago, there were many strange phenomena in the depths of the mountain range. At that time, Lu Haotsong's strength had already reached the profound sage realm. Therefore, he mustered up the courage to investigate deeply, but he didn't find anything. However, the strange phenomena of heaven and earth became more and more intense. Sensing that something was wrong, Lu Haotsong wanted to leave this place with his wife and child. However, he was still too late. All of a sudden, that mountain range was occupied by many powerful saints overnight. Many people, including Lu Haotsong, were directly detained. They were suppressed in a pitch-black place where they could not even see their own hands. It was so dark that they could not see the sun. In the end, Lu Haotsong thought of a way to escape. However, he couldn't save his wife and child. Moreover, ever since he escaped, he had been chased by the powerhouses of that force. Many years had passed, and Lu Haotsong had been on a run. At that time, Morongyu had already become famous in the holy world. At one time, Lu Haotsong wanted to ask Morongyu for help. However, Morongyu didn't have a fixed residence, and he couldn't find Morongyu at all. Therefore, when Morongyu became the leader of the human race's great alliance, Lu Haotsong secretly came here. Why secretly? Because he didn't want that force to know. When he was escaping, he was threatened by that force. If he dared to leak half a word, his wife and children, as well as many innocent people, would all be executed. As for why that force didn't want to use his wife and children to threaten Lu Haotsong, this was because they didn't dare to force Lu Haotsong. As the saying goes, a corner dog will jump over a wall. They were also afraid that Lu Haotsong would leak the news. Strange phenomena of heaven and earth? Mysterious force? Could it be that some treasure is about to appear there? Morongyu's heart skipped a beat, and this thought appeared in his mind. However, he soon corrected his mentality. Saving people was the goal, and seizing the treasure was just incidental. Okay, let's set off immediately. However, you'll have to wait for me. I need to bring some companions with me. As he spoke, Morongyu sent Lu Haotsong into the He-Tu and the Book of the Luo. Then, he took Little White and left Big Dipper Mountain. With Lu Haotsong's help, Morongyu directly teleported to the farthest place, and then quickly rushed over through the teleportation formation. Chapter 17:16. The Scarlet Moon Mountain Range was an ordinary mountain range in the human territory of the Holy World. There wasn't anything good inside, only all kinds of powerful, ferocious beasts. This place was under the control of the Purple Thunder Hall, one of the 10 great holy lands of the human race. Morongyu guessed that those mysterious experts were most likely experts from the Purple Thunder Hall. However, Morongyu didn't get any information from the Purple Thunder Hall, saint-ranking expert he controlled. If they weren't from the Purple Thunder Hall, then they must be one of the Purple Thunder Hall's subordinate forces. Very quickly, Morongyu and Lu Haotsong appeared at the foot of the Scarlet Moon Mountain Range. Looking at the endless mountain range covered by layers of fog, Lu Haotsong said with a gloomy face, "The Scarlet Moon Mountain Range is right in front of us. Not long ago, it was just an ordinary mountain range, and its depths could be seen with a single glance. There was no such fog at all. Furthermore, there were some small forces in the Scarlet Moon Mountain Range before. However, they're all under the control of that mysterious force now." Morongyu nodded slightly and extended his incomparably huge divine sense. However, when his divine sense came into contact with those layers of fog, it was reflected back. "Who is it? Right after Murong Yu's divine sense was reflected back, an angry roar suddenly sounded from the layers of fog. At the same time, Murong Yu and Lu Haotsong saw the fog suddenly split open, and a huge man jumped out from the crack. Without saying anything, that huge man stretched out his huge hand, which was the size of a palm leaf fan, and fiercely slapped down at Murong Yu and Lu Haotsong. A cold, killing intent flashed past Murong Yu's eyes, because he felt an extremely strong, killing intent from that huge man. This guy definitely wanted to kill the two of them in one blow. Furthermore, this person's strength wasn't weak and was an ancestor saint. If it was just Lu Haotsong, he would definitely die, killing without asking for any reason. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. He took a step forward and stretched out his hand to grab the giant man. Seeing Murong Yu make a move, the giant man actually laughed out loud. Without any fear, he continued to attack Murong Yu, because in his eyes, Murong Yu was just a weak piece of trash. Lu Haotsong looked at the giant man with a mocking expression. He was simply courting death. Bang! Murong Yu's attack arrived first, and with a slap, the giant man fell to the ground. Murong Yu's current battle prowess was comparable to a terrifying existence ranked in the top 10 of the saint rankings. Slapping a mere giant to the ground was easier than flipping his palm. What's going on? The giant man was immediately confused. Before he could react, Murong Yu had already stretched out his hand and grabbed him in the air. Immediately after, Murong Yu's palm vibrated with power, and the giant man was instantly knocked unconscious. I was just about to see what's going on inside when you delivered yourself to me. Murong Yu sneered in his heart and began to read the giant man's attack. As expected, it's someone from the Purple Thunder Hall. After getting the information he needed, Murong Yu shook his hand and directly turned the giant man into dust. Although this guy was very unlucky to have run into Murong Yu today, and was unable to kill Murong Yu and Lu Haotsong. However, he had killed quite a few others. Thus, by killing him, Murong Yu could be considered to have gotten rid of an evil for the people. One of the 10 great holy lands. Lu Haotsong was shocked, and the worry on his face became even more intense. He had never thought that his enemy would actually be one of the 10 great holy lands of the human race, the Purple Thunder Hall. Facing such a giant, Lu Haotsong felt extremely powerless. Don't worry, even the Purple Thunder Hall cannot stop me. Knowing Lu Haotsong's worry, Murong Yu smiled and patted his shoulder. Thinking of Murong Yu's identity and strength, Lu Haotsong nodded. Right now, he could only place all his hopes on Murong Yu. Murong Yu, however, did not immediately enter the Scarlet Moon Mountain range. From the giant man's memories, Murong Yu knew what was going on inside. It should be a martial technique. Right now, all the disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall were in the Scarlet Moon Mountain range, and every one of them was comprehending that martial technique. However, for a long time, no one had been able to comprehend that martial technique. However, the people of the Purple Thunder Hall were unwilling to give up. Furthermore, because of the absolute control the Purple Thunder Hall had over this area, even if they sealed off the Scarlet Moon Mountain range, outsiders would not know. Most importantly, when they sealed off the Scarlet Moon Mountain range, they did not use the identity of the Purple Thunder Hall to seal off the mountain range. It was said that the martial technique could be a martial saint or even a dominator-level martial technique. Once one successfully comprehended it, one could become a martial saint or even a dominator. Regarding this, Murong Yu snorted disdainfully. If a martial technique could allow one to become a martial saint or even a dominator, then there would not be so many low-level saints in this world. It was undeniable that martial techniques were important. However, a person's physique, potential, hard work, and various kinds of resources would all be lacking. However, it was undeniable that Murong Yu was also interested in that so-called powerful martial technique. Seeing Murong Yu standing there and seeking death, Lu Haotsong could not help but feel a little nervous. After hesitating for a long time, he finally could not help but ask, "Murong Yu, do you also have no way? If not, then forget it. Murong Yu was startled, and then realized that he had neglected Lu Haotsong. Thus, he smiled and said, "Sister-in-law and the rest are fine. The other people who were imprisoned are also fine. I think the Purple Thunder Hall did not want to kill too many people. Let's go in now. However, you still have to return to the Hichu Luo Shu." Lu Haotsong was overjoyed, as long as he could save them, not to mention entering the Hichu Luo Shu. Even if he was asked to do anything, he would agree. Moreover, the Hichu Luo Shu was not an ordinary place. Others did not even have the qualifications to enter. After keeping Lu Haotsong into the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong Yu took a step forward. His figure quickly dimmed, finally completely disappearing into the void. Concealment. After concealing himself, Murong Yu directly passed through the Great Formation set up by the Purple Thunder Hall. Whether it was the Great Formation or restrictions, they were completely useless against Murong Yu. And then, as soon as Murong Yu entered the Red Moon Mountain Range, his heart suddenly palpitated. An indescribable and powerful call suddenly arose from the bottom of Murong Yu's heart, calling out to Murong Yu, as if summoning Murong Yu. At the same time, the 7 martial arts in Murong Yu's body started to rapidly circulate. Even Murong Yu was unable to suppress them. Murong Yu was immediately greatly shocked. With a thought, he knew that the martial art that was rapidly circulating in his body was none other than one of the 9 characters mantra. After the initial shock, Murong Yu's face revealed an expression of ecstasy. He had encountered this situation many times before. It was always when he encountered the other characters of the 9 characters mantra that this kind of situation would occur. Then, the peerless martial art that the people from the Purple Thunder Hall were talking about was one of the 9 characters mantra. If it was really like this, then Murong Yu had taken another big step towards the perfection of the 9 characters mantra. It should be known that after Murong Yu had obtained the rival formula from the heaven-suppressing sect's Turtle King, Shui Yuanhua, Murong Yu had always been inquiring about the last 2 characters. However, he had not obtained any information at all, and now he had actually obtained information about one of the remaining 2 characters here. If he did not know Lu Haotsong, then he might never know about this character. Lu Haotsong was really a great person. He had helped him so much before, and now he had even given him one of the 9 characters mantra. A great person. Resisting the urge to go over, Murong Yu flew towards the place where the hostages were being held. In the blink of an eye, Murong Yu appeared in a valley. This valley was originally a very ordinary valley. However, at this time, the Purple Thunder Hall had used a great saint technique to open up an independent space, suppressing many people inside. No one was guarding the entrance of the valley. Because those people who were suppressed had their strength sealed, they could not leave this independent space at all, let alone escape the Red Moon Mountain Range. Because of that, Murong Yu swaggered into the room. Swish! Lu Haotsong was released from Hichu Luo Shu. After being stunned for a moment, Lu Haotsong's face was filled with ecstasy. Then his incomparably huge divine sense quickly spread out. The next moment, he took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. He had actually forgotten about Murong Yu. Murong Yu shook his head helplessly and also took a step forward, following behind Lu Haotsong. Jiner! In the blink of an eye, Lu Haotsong appeared next to a middle-aged woman and a young man around the age of 10. Then, he shouted excitedly and directly hugged them. "Husband, why are you back? Father, you're back?" At the same time, the middle-aged woman and the strong-looking teenager exclaimed in surprise. However, the expressions on their faces were different. The middle-aged woman's face was filled with worry, while the teenager's face was filled with joy. The middle-aged woman thought that Lu Haotsong was captured and brought back. The teenager did not think so much. He was just happy to see his father. Murong Yu did not go near, giving the family time to reunite. He only sized up Lu Haotsong's wife and son from afar. Lu Haotsong's wife, Lu Shi, had an ordinary appearance and was not strong, barely entering the Undying Realm. Their son had not even reached the Great Saint Realm. After all, not everyone was as talented and heaven-defying as Murong Yu. Although the pregnancy and growth cycle of a saint was extremely long, the breakthrough time was even longer. From an ordinary saint to a great saint, one had to look at one's own talent, potential cultivation method, and various resources. When Lu Haotsong left, Moronyu gave him a lot of things. But at that time, Moronyu was also a pauper, and he really did not have anything good on him. And after so many years, those things were probably used up by Lu Haotsong. Where would he have the extra resources to nurture his son? While Moronyu was deep in thought, Lu Haotsong had already led Lu Shi and his son, Lu Zijin, over. Chapter 17:17. Jin, come and greet your uncle. Moronyu, this is my wife and my son, Lu Zijin. Lu Haotsong and the others arrived before Moronyu and his wife. Lu Haotsong smiled as he introduced his wife and son to Moronyu. Moronyu smiled and nodded at Madame Lu, then looked at the dignified Lu Zijin. He was currently looking at Moronyu with a curious gaze. Suddenly, Moronyu frowned. Old Lu, what's going on? Lu Zijin's talent? Lu Haotsong's expression immediately darkened. Then he smiled bitterly. Lu Zijin's talent was only average. It could even be said to be poor. If he'd used all sorts of pills to cleanse it after he'd been born, Lu Zijin's talent would have improved quite a bit. However, Lu Haotsong had nothing back then. He didn't have any treasures to improve Lu Zijin's talent at all. As a result, Lu Zijin's talent wasn't just average now. It was very poor. Moronyu guessed that with Lu Zijin's talent, he wouldn't even be able to reach the imperishable realm if he didn't have any fortuitous encounters. This was Lu Haotsong's only son. Moronyu furrowed his brows slightly, then looked at Lu Zijin with a smile on his face. At the same time, he stroked Lu Zijin's head. At the same time, Moronyu's extremely advanced life force erupted from his palm and rushed into Lu Zijin's body. At this moment, Lu Zijin only felt a warm current enter his body from Moronyu's palm, then quickly flow through his body. Wherever it passed, Lu Zijin felt lazy and comfortable. Aya, why do I stink? What's this black stuff? Before long, an incomparably foul smell wafted out from Lu Zijin's body. Lu Zijin felt that something was wrong. He looked at his arms and then jumped in fright. Both of his arms were wrapped in a layer of pitch black and extremely ugly, sticky substance. And it wasn't just his arms, but his entire body. Lu Zijin immediately blushed. Then, without saying a word, he unfolded his body and flew to the other side. There was a river not far from them. Moronyu, thank you. Ever since Moronyu began to wash Lu Zijin's body, Lu Haotsong was stunned. All this time, Lu Haotsong didn't have any natural treasures to raise Lu Zijin's aptitude. However, the couple continued to use their power to refine Lu Zijin's body. However, the effect was extremely weak and could not improve Lu Zijin's physique at all. Moronyu, on the other hand, only lightly stroked her. As a profound sage, Lu Haotsong could tell at a glance that Lu Zijin's aptitude had increased by countless times. Originally, Lu Zijin's aptitude was extremely poor. He couldn't even enter the imperishable realm. At the very least, his aptitude had been raised to high grade. Lu Haotsong and Madame Lu looked at each other, and then both of them revealed a look of surprise. With high-grade aptitude, as long as he didn't die prematurely, reaching the imperishable realm wouldn't be a problem. It was even possible for him to reach the profound sage or ancient sage realm. Old Lu, you can go to Shenzhen in the future. Let Lu Zijin become Shenzhen's disciple. With his current aptitude, I can't guarantee that he will reach the peak of the primal chaos ancestor realm. However, reaching the low level of the primal chaos ancestor realm shouldn't be a problem at all. Moronyu looked at Lu Haotsong and his wife, who had a look of surprise on their faces. Primal chaos ancestor realm? Lu Haotsong was suddenly thrown into disarray. It should be known that their Lu family had never had a powerhouse of that level. Moronyu, is this true? Lu Haotsong felt that he was about to faint. Moronyu didn't speak and only nodded slightly. In fact, he was still holding back. With the power of his life force, he could easily raise a person with low aptitude to the level of a genius. In other words, Lu Zijin had already turned from a person with low aptitude into a genius, and not an ordinary genius. Uncle Moron, little Jean thanks you. After a while, Lu Zijin came back. Then, he immediately thanked Moron-yu. Lu Zijin's aptitude was just a bit lacking, but he wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart. Now, the amount of energy of heaven and earth he breathed in and out was more than 100 million times greater than before. Even a fool would know that his aptitude had been raised, and the person who raised his aptitude was definitely Moron-yu. Lu Zijin, you didn't expect to come to our Shenzhen? Become a disciple of Shenzhen? Moron-yu smiled, and actually sent an invitation to Lu Zijin. No, I want to accompany my parents. Lu Zijin immediately refused. After saying that, he even smiled. Moron-yu was very hurt. His invitation was actually rejected. You unfilial son. Lu Haozong and his wife naturally wanted Lu Zijin to become a disciple of Shenzhen. That way, Lu Zijin's future would be limitless. But now, this guy actually rejected it without even thinking about it. Although this filial piety touched them, it wasn't a wise decision. Thus, Lu Haozong fiercely knocked Lu Zijin on the head. At the same time, he pulled the aggrieved Lu Zijin to the side and began educating him. Moron-yu didn't care about the father and son. With a thought, he had already taken out the Hichu Lu Oshu. Then, all the saints in this independent space were taken away by him. Uncle, I want to join Shenzhen and become a disciple of Shenzhen. At this time, Lu Zijin walked back and said to Moron-yu with a smile. Moron-yu didn't say anything and directly took the three of them into the Hichu Lu Oshu. He already knew that Lu Zijin would join Shenzhen, unless there was really something wrong with Lu Zijin's brain. With a step, Moron-yu's figure disappeared on the spot and became invisible again. It's time to see which word it is. Is it the all word or the forward word? I don't know what power these two words have. Moron-yu thought in his heart and had already used his speed to fly in the direction of the call in his heart. Lin Bing Do Zhe Jie Zhen Lai Zai Qian. Of the 9 syllables mantra, Moron-yu had already obtained 7 words. Now, only the all word and forward word had not been obtained. However, Moron-yu is now almost certain that there was definitely one of the 9 syllables mantra in the depths of the Scarlet Moon Mountain Range. Although the Scarlet Moon Mountain Range was not well known, the mountain ranges in the Holy World were extremely vast and endless. Not to mention a few 100 million people, even billions or tens of billions of people could be accommodated. Moreover, it wouldn't be crowded. Moron-yu's speed was extremely fast, and he quickly rushed to the center of the Scarlet Moon Mountain Range. The closer he got, the stronger the call in Moron-yu's heart became. Strange phenomenon descending from the heavens. Thousands of auspicious colors. Various kinds of multicolored light enveloped the entire mountain range. Under the multicolored light, the several 100 million disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall sat cross-legged on the spot, all of them looking at the void in front of them. Those multicolored lights were emitted from the void. Moron-yu looked over and discovered that there was nothing in the void except for an ancient character the size of a small mountain. That ancient character was something that Moron-yu had never seen before. However, when he saw the ancient character, he immediately recognized what it was. Jia, this ancient character was the same as the 7 characters that Moron-yu had already cultivated. It was one of the characters in the 9 syllables mantra. The Jia character. Moron-yu immediately became excited. If he could obtain this character, then Moron-yu's 9 syllables mantra would reach perfection in just a month. These idiots, although the aura emitted by the Jia character can increase their comprehension to a certain extent, but it's impossible for them to cultivate this character. Holy Master, this character is already at your fingertips. Hichu's voice sounded in Moron-yu's ears. Moron-yu nodded, agreeing with Hichu's words. These people were trying to comprehend the mysteries of the Jia character. But Moron-yu was certain that these people didn't understand the character at all. If they couldn't even understand the characters, how could they comprehend it? Therefore, Moron-yu was quite calm. But now, there was a new problem. From past experience, when Murong Yu collected the 9 syllables mantra, he would no longer be able to conceal himself. Should he drive these people away? Or should he openly take away the all-character formula in front of them? Holy Master, now that the sacred race and the demon race are restless, a new round of war is about to begin. If we only rely on the current human race alliance, we won't be able to stop the invasion of the sacred race and the demon race. I suggest that we first subdue these sacred lands. After all, they have many powerhouses on the saint rankings, and there are many primal chaos ancestor and sacred ancestor level powerhouses. They will be a powerful force to resist the sacred race and the demon race. At this time, Hichu gave Murong Yu a suggestion. Murong Yu pondered for a moment and felt that Hichu was right. After all, other than the true martial temple and unparalleled palace, he didn't dare to subdue them. The other sacred lands didn't have much power to him. So he nodded and then took a step forward, disappearing on the spot. Didn't the Purple Thunder Hall seal the entire Scarlet Moon Mountain range? Right now, Murong Yu was adding an even more powerful formation to their seal. To prevent these people from escaping, these formations didn't need to be very powerful, and Murong Yu only used them to guard against those who slipped through the net. Therefore, he quickly finished setting up the formation, and then with a flash, he appeared near the Jie character. Murong Yu. Just as Murong Yu's figure appeared, several cries of surprise rang out from the Purple Thunder Hall. At the same time, several figures rose into the air and appeared in front of Murong Yu. Murong Yu, what is the meaning of this? The Purple Thunder Hall's hall master, Su Qianyu, looked at Murong Yu with an ugly expression. Everything in the human race alliance belongs to our human race alliance. This cultivation method naturally belongs to our human race alliance. What? Does your Purple Thunder Hall want to monopolize it? Murong Yu glanced at Su Qianyu and said indifferently, everything belongs to the human race alliance? Why don't you say that the entire sacred world belongs to the human race alliance? Su Qianyu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 17-18. Although Murong Yu was the alliance head of the human race's great alliance, and was very powerful at that, but the Purple Thunder Hall group did not fear him in the slightest. At this moment, including the Purple Thunder Hall's hall master Su Tianyu, each and every one of them was looking at Murong Yu furiously. Murderous intent filled the air, filling the entire valley. Many of the Purple Thunder Hall's disciples were even more restless, wanting to kill Murong Yu. Sensing these murderous intents, Murong Yu's expression did not change in the slightest. When one's strength reached a certain level, no matter how many opponents there were, it would be useless against him. With Murong Yu's current strength, he could kill the majority of the Purple Thunder Hall's disciples with a single slap. What? You're still not convinced? Murong Yu looked at Su Qianyu, who was about to vomit blood, his expression turning indifferent. Su Qianyu looked at Murong Yu furiously, then fiercely nodded his head. He was not convinced. If not for the fact that his strength was inferior to Murong Yu's, he would have slapped him long ago. Su Qianyu, your Purple Thunder Hall's reputation in the human race is not bad, and is one of the 10 great sacred lands of the human race. I also do not want to kill too many of you. Now I will give you a chance to completely submit and surrender. Murong Yu first looked at Su Qianyu, then slowly swept his gaze over the Purple Thunder Hall group. Su Qianyu coldly snorted. Murong Yu, I know you are very powerful, and may be able to forcibly control our souls. But don't think that we will truly submit. Murong Yu did not get angry, and only looked at Su Qianyu with a smile. How can you truly submit? If you want us to submit, that's fine. Murong Yu, you must make all of us submit wholeheartedly. How about this? If you can take a full blow from all of us, and if you still don't die, we will submit to you. A saint-ranked expert of the Purple Thunder Hall stepped out, looking at Murong Yu with a cold smile. That's right. As long as you can take a blow from all of us, we will truly submit and never betray you in the future. Countless disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall shouted one after another. All of them looked excited and disdainful. An awkward expression appeared on Murong Yu's face. As Zhang Xian had said earlier, once one's strength reached a certain level, it would not matter how many enemies one had. But that was on the premise that Murong Yu could attack and dodge, and not take it head-on. Moreover, no matter how many enemies there were, it was based on the fact that their attacks were not concentrated. The Purple Thunder Hall had several experts on the Saint rankings, as well as several 100 million experts of other realms. If their strengths were to be condensed into a single force, how terrifying would that force be? Even the top 10 on the Saint rankings, or even a number 1 on the Saint rankings, wouldn't be able to withstand it. Even a supreme being would not dare to take it head-on. Otherwise, if an accident happened and he was killed, it would be a tragedy. You can use any treasure, even a supreme weapon. However, you must take our attacks head-on and not dodge them. Su Qianyu coldly looked at Murong Yu as he sneered in his heart. It would be strange if Murong Yu dared to accept their conditions. Even if he was a supreme, he would have to think about it carefully. As for Murong Yu's supreme weapon, they were not afraid at all. Their attacks might not be able to destroy a supreme weapon, but the overflowing damage of a supreme weapon would be enough to kill Murong Yu. Murong Yu was indeed somewhat hesitant in his heart. He could very well not accept the other party's conditions and directly control their souls. But if he could control the souls of Su Tianyu and the other experts on the Saint rankings, could he control the souls of all the disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall? That was not practical at all. But if Murong Yu did not accept this condition, he would not be able to subdue the Purple Thunder Hall. Moreover, he would be looked down upon by the people of the Purple Thunder Hall. Furthermore, if this matter were to spread out, Murong Yu's face would be swept to the ground, and his prestige among the human race would plummet. This was fatal to Murong Yu. This condition made Murong Yu unable to accept it. If he did not handle it well, Murong Yu's prestige or even his life would be affected. Thinking of this, Murong Yu couldn't help but take a deep look at the expert on the Saint rankings who had made this suggestion. This guy was too scheming to have actually proposed such a condition in such a short time. It could be said that he was extremely vicious. However, if this kind of person was used well, he would be a good blade. Hichu Luoshu, Xianyuan Sword and Mountain Sea Scripture, in addition to my own seal of Akala and the laws of time, I should be able to withstand their attacks. If I am unable to, then I will immediately retreat. After pondering for a while, Murong Yu decided, "Good, I accept your preparations. I will now give you 1 day to prepare." Murong Yu looked indifferently at Su Tianyu, then took a step forward, appearing in the sky. "Saint Master, are we really going to attack?" Seeing Murong Yu leave, some people of the Purple Thunder Hall surrounded Su Tianyu and asked. Su Tianyu nodded. "If Murong Yu is unable to withstand it, then we will directly kill him. However, if he is able to withstand it, it is not impossible for our Purple Thunder Hall to submit to him. If he is able to withstand all of our attacks, it would not be a loss of face to submit to such an expert." Everyone nodded in agreement. Then they began to move. After half a day, Su Tianyu and the others had finished their preparations. Several 100 million of them formed an incomparably huge battle formation. There was no need to ask to know that this formation could condense everyone's power into an incomparably condensed power and then blast it out. At this moment, Murong Yu was also ready. He was not careless, and the Xianyuan sword was placed behind him. Above his head floated the Hichu, Luoshu, and Mountain Sea Scripture. The two treasures emitted rays of saint light, which fell down and enveloped Murong Yu. His entire body was firmly protected by the barrier. At the same time, Murong Yu made his move repeatedly, using the laws of time to condense the surrounding space. He even reversed the surrounding space and time. At this moment, as Murong Yu's strength grew stronger and stronger, Murong Yu's ability to reverse space and time also grew stronger and stronger. Although he was still unable to reverse space and time to the immemorial era or future disciples, he was already able to reverse space and time to about a year. Akala Seal. Among Murong Yu's so-called battle techniques, There was an extremely powerful finishing move in the Black Tortoise scripture, unrivaled 10 directions. However, compared to the 9 syllables mantra's Lin formula, there was still a considerable gap. Therefore, Muronyu chose to use the Lin formula's Akala seal. Kill. After both sides were ready, the Purple Thunder Hall's Holy Lord Su Tianyu roared. Therefore, the several 100 million disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall, who had long since raised their strength to the limit, unleashed their strongest attack. Rumble, multicolored saint light burst out, extremely dazzling and resplendent. After these powers were blasted out, they did not dissipate, nor did they directly attack Muronyu. Instead, they rapidly moved along a specific trajectory. First, they fused with the surrounding powers. This was like a small stream fusing with another small stream, and then turning into a small river. These powers rapidly grew and then directly rushed into the sky. During this process, the people of the Purple Thunder Hall did not stop the outpouring of power. Instead, each and every one of them released the power within their bodies in an unending stream. Finally, these powers gathered in the air above their heads, forming an incomparably huge sphere of power. Under the unceasing outpouring of power from the people of the Purple Thunder Hall, this sphere became smaller and smaller. That's right, it did not become bigger and bigger, but smaller and smaller. However, the smaller its size, the more terrifying the power it erupted with. Every time the sphere of power shrunk by 1/10, its power would double. Furthermore, this sphere even started to actively absorb the power of the people of the Purple Thunder Hall in the end. About an hour later, many disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall were already unable to hold on and collapsed. However, even if they had collapsed, they still raised their heads to look at that sphere of power, because it carried the hope of all of them. After a while, even Su Tianyu, who was the strongest among them, started to feel strained. At this time, 90% of the experts of the entire Purple Thunder Hall had already collapsed. Right now, not to mention encountering sacred ground, even a peak strength expert could easily kill the majority of them. Murongyu's expression was extremely grave as he looked at that sphere of power. He could feel the aura of death from his sphere. This was because that sphere had the ability to kill him. Furthermore, the probability of that happening was not small. Cut off the outpouring of power attack. Su Tianyu shouted loudly, and those disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall who were still holding on immediately cut off the outpouring of power, stopping the outpouring of power. At this time, Su Tianyu had already controlled the sphere to slowly bombard Muronyu. At this time, the sphere of power was only the size of a millstone. This was after all the power of several 100 million sages. Once it exploded, it was likely that even a martial saint would be killed. At the beginning, the sphere's power was very slow, but it gradually accelerated. The gazes of the people of the Seamless Society were all focused on that sphere. The sphere's speed became faster and faster, and the pressure it emitted also became more and more terrifying. The terrifying aura suppressed the entire Scarlet Moon mountain range, causing it to tremble violently, as if it would explode at any time. The faces of the people of the Purple Thunder Hall changed greatly. Fortunately, Muronyu was in the sky. Otherwise, once that sphere exploded, they would definitely die. But even so, they still quickly retreated. With a schwa sound, the sphere had already arrived in front of Muronyu. Boom! When the sphere arrived not far in front of Muronyu, everyone saw a burst of blinding holy light suddenly erupt. Following that, an earth-shattering sound rang out, shaking the surrounding space and shattering it. Some of the disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall were so shocked that their vision turned black, and they actually fainted. The sphere had exploded. At this time, Murongyu's state of mind was raised to the extreme, because he had already seen an incomparably terrifying power shattering through space and time, ruthlessly strangling towards him. With a thought, Muronyu activated the Mountain Sea scripture and went up to meet it. Chapter 17:19. Muronyu couldn't retreat, nor could he take the initiative to attack. He didn't use the mountain and sea scripture to attack the power that had already erupted. Instead, he used the mountain and sea scripture to block that terrifying attack. Boom! In a flash, the mountain and sea scripture, which had transformed into the size of a mountain, was already millions of miles away from Murongyu. Almost at the same time the mountain and sea scripture appeared, the power of the sphere that had gathered the power of all the saints of the Purple Thunder Hall fiercely collided with the mountain and sea scripture. After a loud explosion, the mountain and sea scripture was directly sent flying. It didn't even stay in place for a tenth of a breath's time. Crack! At the same time the mountain and sea scripture was sent flying, a crisp sound rang out from Murongyu's body. His mind had been shattered quite a bit. Even his physical body had been shaken by the overflowing damage, to the point that incomparably terrifying cracks had appeared on it. However, to others, this was a serious injury. But it was still not enough to threaten Murongyu's life. The life force in his body was quickly cleansed. After a round of exchanges, Murongyu's shattered physical body was restored to its original state. At the same time, his incomparably huge soul spirit also surged into his mind like raging waves. Then, Murongyu's mind was rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. During this process, Murongyu looked at the boundless power that was rushing towards him, his eyes shining brightly. As for the mountain and sea scripture, this supreme artifact, it was fine. It was a high-grade supreme artifact, and couldn't be destroyed so easily. After using up a portion of its power and being sent flying, Murongyu didn't want to use it for the time being. After all, if he continued to use a supreme artifact, the overflowing damage would be too terrifying. He actually blocked it? Seeing Murongyu block the attack, the people of the Purple Thunder Hall on the ground couldn't help but be surprised. But it was only a slight surprise. After all, Murongyu's attack this time had only used up less than a tenth of its power. There was still 90% of the attack that was rushing towards Murongyu. Time reversal, time freeze, time chaos, time and space reversal. After the mountain and sea scripture was sent flying, the explosive power rushed into the time power that Murongyu had set up. As a result, these powers were either transferred to different space-time or frozen in part due to the freezing of time. In fact, due to the chaos of time, the power generated by the explosion of the spheres actually bombarded each other. They canceled each other out. What's the situation? They saw that the power they had unleashed was stagnant in the sky. The power of the explosion was weakening at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everyone from the Purple Thunder Hall could not help but be dumbstruck. At this time, no one doubted Murongyu. Regardless of whether Murongyu had used his power or some other treasure, he had still managed to block the attacks. To be able to block the power, this was a skill. Thus, other than being shocked, the people of the Purple Thunder Hall actually began to admire him. Boom, crack, crack. However, the combined power of all of them was too terrifying. Very quickly, Murongyu's time power could no longer withstand it. In the blink of an eye, all of Murongyu's moves and techniques related to the power of time were shattered. However, what made Murongyu feel gratified was that this time power had consumed more than 20% of the opponent's power. In other words, before that power had even reached Murongyu, 30% of it had already been consumed by Murongyu. The threat to Murongyu had decreased greatly. Now, only 70% of its power was left. Even so, Murongyu did not dare to underestimate it, nor did he dare to relax in the slightest. At this time, he was still on guard. Space imprisonment, space barrier, space oscillation, space barrier, space laceration. After the time power came the space power. Like the time power, these moves and techniques were all left behind by Murongyu's vision. As long as the space power did not disappear, once it was attacked, these moves would be triggered, erupting with power. However, the space power did not specialize in attack, but in imprisonment. Thus, the space power was able to resist for a shorter period of time than the time power and consumed less power. However, it had also consumed 10% of its power. 40% of its power had been consumed. and the opponent's power had already broken through Murong Yu's 3 layers of defense. Now, Murong Yu only had a single layer of defense left. The power that had been weakened by 40%, condensed from the power of everyone in the Purple Thunder Hall, had once again decreased explosively. The threat to Murong Yu had decreased even further. However, there was still 60% of its power, which could easily grind Murong Yu to smithereens. Withdraw. At this time, that power had already rushed to not far in front of Murong Yu, fiercely smashing into the Hichu Luo Shu. Just at this time, Murong Yu roared loudly, and the Hichu Luo Shu that had originally already covered the skies suddenly opened up, revealing a large opening. Following which, the Purple Thunder Hall members were shocked to see that a considerable portion of the power they had collectively unleashed had actually surged into the Hichu Luo Shu. Rumble. At this time, the inside of the Hichu Luo Shu was a completely different scene. After this terrifying power had rushed in, large swathes of space were shattered wherever it passed, and even annihilated. However, Murong Yu had long since made preparations. With a thought, this power shot out in all directions. Although the heavens and earth were still shattered wherever it passed, and space was annihilated, the amount of space it passed through was much smaller. However, the amount of force that each part of his body had to endure was much smaller. At the same time, the damage he received was also much smaller. Apart from 1/10 of the space that had not been ravaged by this power, all the remaining space within the Hichu Luo Shu had been shattered and even annihilated. And this was only 40% of the power that had been unleashed by that sphere of power. After devouring 40% of its power, Murong Yu closed the Hichu Luo Shu. Without any suspense, the Hichu Luo Shu was sent flying. Now, there was only 20% of its power left. The yin-yang cauldron, the yin-yang bow, and the heaven-shaking arrow had all been brought out by Murong Yu, blocking in front of him. Although they had all been sent flying, 10% of their power had also been used up. In principle, the yin-yang cauldron and the yin-yang bow were not weaker than the mountain and sea scripture. However, of these two treasures, one was good at refining pills, while the other was good at attacking. Although the yin-yang cauldron's attack was also very sharp, both of them were not good at defending. Thus, the effect was not great. However, these treasures and Murong Yu's methods had still managed to reduce the power of the attack by 90%. Merely 10% of the attack had already landed on Murong Yu's body in a flash. Rumble. After a loud explosion, an even more dazzling and resplendent holy light erupted. The glaring holy light had submerged the entire world, including Murong Yu. It had blinded everyone's eyes. I wonder if Murong Yu will be able to block it. The resplendent and dazzling holy light did not disperse for a long time. No one could clearly see Murong Yu, who was surrounded by the endless holy light. However, all of them were still unable to take their eyes off that dazzling light. They did not dare to extend their divine senses over, otherwise they would be shattered into pieces before they could even get close. If he doesn't die, will you all submit to him? A disciple of the Purple Thunder Hall suddenly asked the person beside him. Yes, a disciple of the Purple Thunder Hall answered firmly without hesitation. The others also gave the same resolute answer. They had all felt the terror of that power. The power of several 100 million disciples had been continuously broken by Murong Yu. Most importantly, Murong Yu did not take the initiative to retreat, nor did he take the initiative to attack. He was only passively enduring it. No matter if it was Murong Yu's strength or his charisma, he had already conquered all the people of the Purple Thunder Hall. Facing a power that could practically destroy everything, who would have the courage to directly face it, not escaping or attacking? In the entire sacred world, there was probably only Murong Yu alone. It could be said that this time, even if Murong Yu had been killed, he had still conquered the Purple Thunder Hall. At this moment, even Su Qianyu, the holy master of the Purple Thunder Hall, could not help but wholeheartedly submit to Murong Yu. If Murong Yu doesn't die, I will pledge my loyalty to him. This thought appeared in the minds of the people of the Purple Thunder Hall. They were willing to submit to him. After a long time, the holy light in the sky gradually dissipated. Under the expectant gazes of the people of the Purple Thunder Hall, a huge protective shield appeared in their line of sight. When the holy light completely disappeared, Yu, who was forming hand seals, slowly appeared in the ears of the people of the Purple Thunder Hall. Yu did not die. Furthermore, he seemed to be fine, as if nothing had happened to him at all. Good. In the crowd, it was not known who shouted first, but the entire Purple Thunder Hall was in a thunderous uproar. They all shouted loudly, each and every one of them looking incomparably excited. Phew! Within the protective shield, Yu let out a sigh of relief. Putting away the Achilles seal, he took a step forward, appearing in the air above everyone's heads. Hearing the cheers from below and the excited expressions of the Purple Thunder Hall disciples, a smile also appeared on Yu's face. Although it was a close call this time, he had successfully conquered the Purple Thunder Hall. Furthermore, after enduring the attack just now, Yu discovered that his Achilles seal seemed to have become even stronger. Not only was it easier to control, the power of the protective shield had also increased by several times. Yu couldn't help but wonder if the Achilles seal would only disappear after it was attacked. We pay our respects to the Alliance Master. From now on, we of the Purple Thunder Hall will follow the Holy Master for life. Even if we have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames, we will follow him to death. We will never betray him. The Hall Master of the Purple Thunder Hall, Su Qianyu, brought all the experts of the Purple Thunder Hall in front of Yu, then knelt down on one knee, simultaneously shouting, "We will follow him to death. We will never betray him. We will follow him to death. We will never betray him. We will follow him to death. We will never betray him." On the ground, all the disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall also knelt down on one knee, shouting loudly towards the sky. Yu's heart was blooming with joy, but on the surface, he only revealed a slight smile. He took a step forward, supporting Su Qianyu with both hands. "Everyone, remember, we are all equal. There is no need to kneel." The people of the Purple Thunder Hall were startled. Then a look of gratitude appeared on their faces. Equal? Where did this equality come from? Whoever's fist was bigger was the boss. The weak did not have the slightest bit of dignity and could only kneel in front of the strong. However, Yu had said that they were all equal. How could they not be moved? Chapter 17:20. Originally, Yu's success in blocking the attacks of the Purple Thunder Hall's group had already caused the Purple Thunder Hall disciples to feel sincere admiration for him. At that time, they had already been willing to submit. But at that time, the Purple Thunder Hall group had also been willing to submit. Towards Yu, towards Shenzhen, and towards the human race's great alliance, they did not have any sense of belonging. They would listen to Yu's orders, but they would definitely not listen to Yu's orders and die. But ever since Yu had said, "Everyone, remember, we are all equal. There is no need to kneel," the Purple Thunder Hall group had been instantly moved. Yu was the high and mighty Holy Master, the alliance head of the human race's great alliance. He had actually said that he was an equal existence to them all. At this moment, a feeling of a gentleman dying for his bosom friend appeared in the hearts of many Purple Thunder Hall disciples. At this time, if Yu wanted them to die, some of them would definitely die without hesitation. As a super expert, Yu naturally felt the change in their hearts. This made him feel astonished, because Yu had really never needed others to kneel before him. In his faction, there was indeed no such thing as people kneeling at the slightest provocation. But what he did not expect was that with just a sentence, the Purple Thunder Hall group would actually be so moved. Presumably, it was because the hierarchy in the Purple Thunder Hall was very strict. But this was a good thing. After all, the Purple Thunder Hall disciples were all geniuses amongst geniuses. The Purple Thunder Hall was after all one of the 10 great holy lands of the human race. Their conditions for recruiting disciples were extremely harsh, just like the true martial temple. As long as these people were properly nurtured, they would be able to become Murong Yu's capable backing in the future. Seeing the worship in everyone's eyes, a helpless smile flashed across the face of the Purple Thunder Hall's Hall Master Su Tianyu. Right now, his prestige in the Purple Thunder Hall was probably already far below Murong Yu's. He had already held this position for many years, but there had been a day when he was still inferior to Murong Yu's. How could he not feel a sense of loss in his heart? Alliance Master, what do we do now? After a while, Su Tianyu calmed himself down and asked for instructions from Murong Yu. After all, they'd already submitted to Murong Yu, so they had to follow his lead. As for whether Murong Yu wanted the Purple Thunder Palace to continue existing or to split it up and merge it with Shenzhen, Su Tianyu had no objections to this. Furthermore, even if it were to be split up, those disciples of the Purple Thunder Hall would not have any objections. However, in that case, the Purple Thunder Palace's orthodoxy would disappear. It was a pity. There's no rush. Let's see how I'm going to subdue this ancient character first. Murong Yu smiled and said, everyone can continue to study this character. As long as anyone comprehended it, the ancient character would belong to them. I won't take it away by force. We can still continue comprehending? The members of the Purple Thunder Hall were pleasantly surprised. Although they couldn't comprehend this word, the more they couldn't comprehend it, the more they felt that this character wasn't simple, and the more valuable it was. They all knew that if they could truly comprehend this ancient character, they would become the peak existence of the holy world. Alliance Master, can you really comprehend this ancient character? Su Tianyu and the other experts on the holy rankings all looked at Murong Yu. They didn't really believe it in their hearts. However, looking at Murong Yu's confident appearance and thinking of Murong Yu's abnormal aptitude, they began to doubt it. You don't believe me? Murong Yu didn't say anything. Instead, he rose into the air and slowly flew towards the all character floating in the air. At this moment, the other characters of the 9 syllables of truth in Murong Yu's body began to circulate even faster. There was even a faint feeling of a breakthrough. Murong Yu knew that every character of the 9 syllables of truth had a grade. Some of the 9 syllables of truth had a corresponding divine ability or battle skill for every grade. Even if there wasn't, its power could still increase explosively. Whoosh! Murong Yu directly reached out his hand and grabbed at the all character in the air. Seeing this, everyone in the Purple Thunder Hall revealed a smile. It wasn't that they hadn't done something like this before, but no one had ever been able to get close to the all character, let alone grab it in their hands. However, that didn't include Murong Yu. Under everyone's shocked expressions, Murong Yu's hand directly grabbed the all character. Then there was no more then. The all character had already been absorbed into Murong Yu's body. Rumble. The instant Murong Yu absorbed the all character into his body erupted with 7 different colors of holy light. For a moment, the holy light was resplendent and dazzling everyone's eyes. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura rushed out of Murong Yu's body and swept in all directions. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After 7 consecutive sounds, everyone saw 7 black shadows rush out of Murong Yu's body and slowly revolve around Murong Yu's body. Why is there such a character on the Alliance Master's body? Although it's not the same character as the one just now, it seems to be the same. It should be from the same era? Everyone in the Purple Thunder Hall was stunned. For a moment, they couldn't react and could only stare blankly at Murong Yu, who was in the sky. Lin Bing Do Zhezhen Lai Zai. In fact, Murong Yu's thoughts revolve around these words. They were the 7 characters of the 9 characters mantra that he had cultivated before. However, this was the first time he had seen these ancient characters appear on his body. Because previously, after Murong Yu had cultivated the 9 characters mantra, those characters seemed to have disappeared. But now, he didn't know what the situation was. However, although Murong Yu hadn't gone to understand it yet, He also felt that his strength had skyrocketed. These 7 characters should mean that he had leveled up, and their might had also skyrocketed. At this moment, Muronyu didn't have the time to care about these things. His entire mind was focused on the all-character formula, and he began to comprehend it. Time slowly passed, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. In these 3 days, Muronyu had been in a state of secluded cultivation. The people of the Purple Thunder Hall were also staring at Muronyu below, none of them leaving. The Alliance Master should be comprehending that character, right? He's really amazing. So many of us have comprehended it for so many years, but we didn't get anything. He actually took this character the moment he came. Usually, I also think of myself as a genius. But compared to the Alliance Master, I'm simply a big idiot. Nonsense. You think you can compare to the Alliance Master? Stop arguing. If it affects the Alliance Master, can you bear the responsibility? A disciple glared at the people who were talking. Instantly, those people fell silent. After a long time, someone muttered to himself, I wonder how long the Alliance Master will need to comprehend it? The stronger one is, the stronger the cultivation technique, and the longer it takes to comprehend it. There are even some people who can't comprehend it even after several eras, or even longer. Whoosh! Before this Purple Thunder Hall disciple's voice had even fallen, a black shadow shot out from Murongyu's body. Then, like the other 7 characters, it began to revolve around Murongyu's body. Isn't this the character that the Alliance Master just subdued? A cry of surprise suddenly sounded from the crowd. This ancient character that had suddenly appeared was precisely the all-character formula. The appearance of the all-character formula meant that Muronyu had already comprehended the mysteries of the all-character formula. Indeed, right after the all-character formula appeared, Muronyu opened his eyes. At the same time, he stood up, glancing at the energy revolving around his body. Murongyu's mind moved, and the 8 ancient characters entered his body. After checking himself a little, Muronyu was surprised to find that his cultivation had actually broken through. 3rd stage Primal Chaos Ancestor Saint. Muronyu guessed that his ranking on the Saint rankings should have risen again. It should have reached around 80,000, right? However, right now, Muronyu didn't care about his ranking on the Saint rankings. This was because his own strength far surpassed his ranking on the Saint rankings. Before his breakthrough, Muronyu was already strong enough to contend with the top 10 experts on the Saint rankings. Now, even if he didn't summon the Xianyuan sword, he could still contend with the 8th to 10th experts on the Saint rankings. If he borrowed the strength of the Xianyuan sword, Muronyu felt that he could even contend with the 3rd-ranked expert on the Saint rankings, Dongmen Lishuan. As for the 2nd-ranked expert on the Saint rankings, Muronyu had yet to see the 2nd-ranked expert on the Saint rankings, so he didn't know what level of strength that expert had reached. Therefore, he wouldn't belittle himself. His strength had skyrocketed. The power of the 8 ancient characters had also greatly improved. For example, the army character formula. Previously, it had evolved into demon wings, angel wings, and so on. However, these wings were all gone now, and he had returned to the era of the army character formula. However, Muronyu could guarantee that with his current speed, Dongmen Lishuan could only eat dust behind him. The formation character formula had broken through to an even higher level. However, no new skills had appeared. However, every skill had been greatly improved. Time freeze, time chaos, and so on could easily imprison the top 10 experts on the Saint rankings. The most terrifying thing was Murongyu's ability to reverse time and space. Previously, Muronyu could only reverse time and space for a few years, and he couldn't maintain it for long. Now, Muronyu could reverse time and space to an era before or after. In other words, Muronyu could use time reversal to send someone back to an era before or perhaps an era in the future. However, it wasn't eternal. The current Muronyu could only maintain this ability for a year. After a year, the people who were sent back to the past or the future would be sent back. Otherwise, they would be directly erased by the power of time. Other abilities, such as the soul and space, had also skyrocketed. In short, Yu's strength had skyrocketed. As for the all-character arts ability, Yu already knew about it. Heavenly divination. Time reversal can reverse time and space within an era. Can I go back and see when I was young? Who are my parents? Yu thought to himself. After this thought appeared in his mind, his desire to go back became stronger and stronger. Chapter 17:21. After thinking about it carefully, Yu realized that it had been more than an era since he was born. Although it had been less than 2 eras, Yu's ability to reverse time and space was unable to go back to when he was a child. Therefore, if Yu wanted to go back, he could only do so after he made another breakthrough in the Lie character formula. And Yu believed that this was something that could be done sooner or later. Although Yu had a chaotic celestial body physique, but it was not born from heaven and earth. He also had parents. However, Yu had no impression of his parents at all. It was said that his parents were ordinary children of Yu's family. They did not accomplish anything in their lives and died very early. As for how they died, Yu did not know. In fact, after Yu became powerful, he also went back to Yu's family to read the memories of many people of the older generation of Yu's family. But in these people's memories, there were very few memories of Yu's parents. What puzzled Yu the most was that no one had the appearance of Yu's parents in their minds. There were only 2 very vague appearances, and it was impossible to tell what they were like. After that, Yu also asked Hichu about it. Hichu once told Yu that every chaotic celestial body had the same experience. In their youth, they were all trash who could not cultivate. Then, after they accidentally obtained the Hichu Luoshu, they soared to the sky. Moreover, those people did not have any impression of their parents. As for Hichu, after those chaotic celestial bodies obtained the Hichu Luoshu, their parents had died. Therefore, Hichu did not know the details. However, Hichu also vaguely said, Yu's chaotic celestial body physique was really too powerful. His parents might have been killed by him. Therefore, Yu had always felt guilty. Therefore, he had long decided to resurrect his parents. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Shaking his head, he threw these thoughts out of his mind. Then, he looked at Su Tianyu and the others who were still in shock. Su Tianyu, what's your rank on the saint rankings? 49. Su Tianyu blurted out, unable to react. Yu nodded and smiled. Then take my attack. Are you ready? Yu smiled and looked at Su Tianyu. At this time, Su Tianyu finally reacted. With a thought, he retreated explosively. When the distance between them reached 100 million miles, Yu made his move. He didn't do anything, only flicking his finger. With a whoosh, a black shadow shot out from his fingertip. The black shadow expanded rapidly in the wind. In the blink of an eye, the black shadow had grown to the size of a small mountain. At this time, the members of the Purple Thunder Hall were finally able to clearly see what this black shadow was. It wasn't some kind of power, but a huge ancient character. It was one of the 8 ancient characters that had been revolving around Yu's body. However, none of them recognized the meaning of this ancient character. In reality, this was the Zai character of the 9 words mantra. Previously, Yu couldn't directly type these characters out. However, ever since he obtained the 8th character, the All character, he was able to attack like this. However, Yu wasn't sure what kind of power this attack had. Therefore, he wanted to use Su Tianyu to test its power. In a flash, the Zai character had already smashed through hundreds of millions of space-time and appeared in front of Su Tianyu. At this time, Su Tianyu didn't feel any sense of danger from the Zai character. However, his expression was still very serious. After all, Yu's strength was much higher than his. Even a casual attack would cost him his life. As for Yu, he definitely wouldn't do something meaningless. Therefore, Su Tianyu waited with rapt attention. Boom! When the Zai character appeared 10,000 miles in front of Su Tianyu, he finally made his move. He attacked with all his might and punched out fiercely. It was earth-shattering and it bombarded the Zai character fiercely. After the earth-shattering noise, a terrifying shock wave violently shook in all directions from the place of the bombardment. Wherever the power passed, the void was quickly annihilated. In the process, the Zai character was directly shattered into powder. And Su Tianyu was also sent flying by the terrifying power. That's it. In the distance, Morong Yu frowned slightly. Although the attack just now was a bit stronger than any of his casual attacks, it was still very powerful. However, there was nothing special about it. Such a change in the Zai character shouldn't be like this. Could it be that there are still some powers that I haven't developed? Seeing Su Tianyu flying away, Morong Yu's faintly furrowed brows gradually smoothed out. Rumble. At this moment, the void around Su Tianyu became incomparably violent. Space storm. The terrifying space power cut a large area of the void and quickly strangled Su Tianyu. Su Tianyu was a little shocked. With a thought, he punched out again, trying to break out the space storm. However, at this time, he felt a great pressure in the surrounding space, try to imprison him in the void. Space imprisonment. Su Tianyu was shocked again. The power in his body burst out, trying to break these attacks. However, at this moment, a huge saber condensed from the power of space tore through the sky and slashed down with incomparable ferocity. Space slash. After space slash, it was space shock and space shield. However, this shield was a little different from the one Morong Yu used. If Morong Yu used the space shield, the function of a space shield was to protect his body. Now, the space shield that enveloped Su Tianyu had the effect of confinement. In the distance, Morong Yu was a little shocked, because he didn't make any moves after throwing out the Zai character. In other words, these space slash, space storm, and other attacks were actually released by the Zai character. There was no need for Morong Yu to make a move at all. He only needed to throw out the Zai character, and those battle skills would automatically come out. Was this the ability of the 9 syllables after the transformation? In the midst of the shock, Morong Yu was very happy. If the Zai character was like this, then would the other 7 characters be like this too? Morong Yu's heart suddenly became hot. With a thought, he threw out the Zai character. Seeing Morong Yu attack again, Su Tianyu was very depressed, because at this time, he was still trapped in the void and couldn't leave. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave, but the binding power of the space rule was too strong. Moreover, Morong Yu was much stronger than him. For a while, he couldn't break these bindings and leave. The Zai character corresponded to soul attacks. Therefore, under Morong Yu's expectant gaze, the Zai character ruthlessly bombarded Su Tianyu's body. Then it directly burst out all kinds of soul attacks. Saint Soul Slash, Soul Sacred Punch, Saint Luo annihilating the sky, Soul Storm, and so on directly bombarded. Seeing this, Morong Yu once again typed out a character. The Lai character formula had a time attack. Puff, puff, puff. Finally, Su Tianyu couldn't take it anymore. Under the space rule, time rule, and soul attack, he was injured. At this time, a huge fighting character bombarded Su Tianyu's body. Just when Su Tianyu felt that something was wrong, he suddenly realized that his power had suddenly increased by several times. As a result, he roared and unleashed his strongest power, shattering the attacks of space and time around him. After shattering these attacks, Su Tianyu still had lingering fear. With a thought, he exploded. However, he didn't expect a huge Bing character to land on his head, almost knocking him out. However, Su Tianyu didn't faint, but his speed suddenly increased. With a shio sound, he retreated explosively, instantly disappearing from everyone's line of sight. When did the Saint Master's power and speed become so terrifying? Many of the Purple Thunder Palace's experts on the Saint rankings all had shocked expressions. They were all clear of Su Tianyu's power. Perhaps he usually held back. But now, the power and speed he had burst out with was several times more than before. This was too illogical. Even Su Tianyu was baffled, not to mention that they didn't think it was scientific. Only Morong Yu understood the reason. It wasn't that Su Tianyu had suddenly become stronger, but rather Those abilities were given to him by Murong-Yu. Strictly speaking, it was given to him by those few ancient characters of the 9 words mantra. After experimenting, Murong-Yu finally discovered the use of these ancient characters. Ancient characters with offensive power, after being sent out, would explode with all kinds of moves. And ancient characters like the battle character art and army character art that increased power and speed would also increase the opponent's power and speed. Alliance head, what's going on? After a while, Su Tianyu walked back, looking at Murong-Yu with a face full of shock and confusion. An attack like Murong-Yu's was simply unprecedented. You said that this was just a casual attack of mine. Would you believe me? Murong-Yu didn't answer, instead giving an irrelevant answer. Su Tianyu nodded. He still believed this point. However, he was still curious about Murong-Yu's martial technique. Only, since Murong-Yu didn't say anything, it wasn't convenient for him to ask further. The power of the ancient characters are all temporary and can even be used only once. I wonder if Su Tianyu will also have the ability to deduce heaven's secrets if I use the all-character art on him? Murong-Yu pondered in his heart, a smile appearing on his face as he looked at Su Tianyu. Since the ability of the all-character technique was not offensive, defensive, or auxiliary, it was not offensive, defensive, or auxiliary. Instead, it had the ability to deduce heaven's secrets and sense danger. The so-called heaven's secrets was to deduce what had already happened and what had yet to happen. To put it bluntly, it was foresight. If Murong-Yu's ability was strong enough, he could become an omniscient person. Chapter 1722. Murong-Yu didn't have the time to test out the ability of foresight because he had more important things to do now. Immediately, he looked at Su Tianyu and the people of the Purple Thunder Hall, coughed dryly, and said, I believe everyone is waiting for my decision. Some of you might be worried whether I will break up the Purple Thunder Hall and merge it into the Human Race Alliance. As he spoke, Murong-Yu deliberately glanced at the crowd. Sure enough, after hearing Murong-Yu's words, they all looked at Murong-Yu with a serious expression, waiting for Murong-Yu to announce his decision. The Human Race Alliance has always been an alliance and not a sect or family. Therefore, you can rest assured that I will not break up the Purple Thunder Hall. You can still keep your orthodoxy. Su Tianyu will still be your holy lord, and I will not interfere with any of your previous systems. The Purple Thunder Hall will still be an independent sect. However, while you are enjoying the benefits of the Purple Thunder Hall, you can also enjoy the benefits of our Human Race Alliance. In other words, you can enjoy 2 kinds of benefits now. Good? Hearing this, everyone cheered. Some people secretly sighed in relief, while others were somewhat disappointed. Those who were relieved naturally didn't want to break up the Purple Thunder Hall. And those who were disappointed were naturally those who were willing to become Shenzhen's disciples. However, enjoying 2 kinds of benefits was indeed a great thing for them. Most importantly, they could also go to the Human Race Alliance to cultivate the secret techniques of the other Holy Lands. Now, I will send you back to the Purple Thunder Hall. Whether or not we will announce our joining the Human Race Alliance has not been announced yet. Su Tianyu, you can do as you see fit. But I can tell you that the Demon Race and the Holy Race are already getting restless. The war between the 3 races is not far away. When that time comes, just relying on the Human Race Alliance and the 9 Holy Lands, which are scattered like sand, will not be able to stop their invasion. And now that the Supremes have not appeared, whether we can stop their invasion will depend on us. The faces of the people of the Purple Thunder Hall all turned serious. The Demon Race was still all right, as they were only a single race, and their strength was about the same as the Human Race. But the Holy Race was different. There are more than 10,000 races in the Sacred Race. As for the peak races that could contend against the Human Race, there are the Phoenixes, Dragons, Angels, Fiends, and many other races. In the past, the Human Race and the Demon Race were only able to resist the invasion of the Saint Race when they joined forces, and that was only because of the deterrence of the Supreme Being. The outcome of the battle this time was unknown. Once the human race was unable to hold on, the disciples of the Holy Lands would be the first to bear the brunt of the attack. With a wave of his hand, Muronyu sent everyone into the Hichu Luo Shu. After that, they removed the various great arrays and formations outside the Scarlet Moon Mountain range and directly teleported back to the Purple Thunder Palace. The Purple Thunder Palace had already been destroyed by the many experts of the Angel race and the Fiend race. However, it had already been rebuilt by the people of the Purple Thunder Hall. When Muronyu returned, he directly teleported to the vicinity of the expert on the Saint rankings who was under his control. Although the Purple Thunder Hall claimed that all of its disciples had already gone to the Scarlet Moon Mountain range to comprehend the all-character formula. But in fact, there were still some people overseeing the headquarters. The expert on the Saint rankings who was under Murongyu's control was one of the experts overseeing the Purple Thunder Palace. It was also because of this that Murongyu didn't know what happened in the Scarlet Moon Mountain range. After the Purple Thunder Palace built a few teleportation arrays that connected to the Human Race Alliance, Murongyu returned. At this point, the disciples of the Purple Thunder Palace could also directly go to the Human Race Alliance through the teleportation arrays. Usually, they could choose to cultivate in the Purple Thunder Palace or in the Big Dipper Mountain. They could enjoy the treatment of the Human Race Alliance. At this time, the Human Race Alliance could be said to be thriving. Under the efforts of everyone, it was flourishing. This made Murongyu feel quite gratified. He was really living a leisurely life as a hands-off shopkeeper. Recently, Feng Sangxiong often appeared near the Big Dipper Mountain and captured some primal chaos ancestor saints of the Human Race Alliance. Zhao Jiqing walked over with a slight frown and murderous aura. Feng Sangxiong, a strong murderous aura, flashed across Murongyu's eyes. As for why Feng Sangxiong didn't capture the experts on the Saint list, this was because the experts of the Human Race Alliance didn't leave the Big Dipper Mountain. Feng Sangxiong didn't have that opportunity at all. Since the last incident, I have been busy until now and didn't pay attention to Feng Sangxiong. This guy didn't disappear on his own and is still so arrogant? Murongyu was angry and murderous. However, Murongyu wanted to suppress Feng Sangxiong in the past, but he seemed powerless. Even with the help of Feng Sangxiong's power, Murongyu is not Feng Sangxiong's opponent. Moreover, Feng Sangxiong also used his supreme weapon to know Murongyu's location at any time. Even if Murongyu went to sneak attack, he couldn't do it. However, this time, Murongyu obtained the all-character art, and his strength had skyrocketed. He had information to suppress Feng Sangxiong. In that case, let's see the power of the all-character art. Murongyu smiled coldly and began to deduce the Heaven Secrets. The Heaven Secrets didn't need any tools to deduce. It was enough to deduce in one's heart. At the beginning, Murongyu didn't deduce Feng Sangxiong directly, because although it was his first time to deduce the Heaven Secrets, but he also knew that the more powerful the target was, the smaller the chance of being deduced. Therefore, Murongyu's first target was his good brotherly Feng. Li Feng's cultivation aptitude was really not good, but he was still forcibly promoted to the imperishable realm by Murongyu. As long as he didn't reincarnate, he was an immortal existence. However, his cultivation was still too low compared to Murongyu's. At the beginning, Murongyu's heart was just a white haze. There was nothing. But as he continued to deduce, a vague scene gradually appeared in his mind. At first, the scene was very vague, but as Murongyu continued to deduce, the scene became clearer and clearer. After a while, Murongyu found that the scene was inside the Big Dipper Mountain. The deduction continued, and finally, Li Feng's appearance appeared in Murongyu's mind. And Li Feng's location was in one of his residences in the Great Alliance of the Human Race. Murongyu stopped the deduction, and with a thought, his huge divine sense stretched out. The next moment, he saw Li Feng. At this time, Li Feng was doing the same thing as he had deduced. The deduction was correct. Although it took a long time, there was no mistake. This made Murongyu a little excited. At the same time, he also found that after deducing Li Feng, his mental force was rapidly consumed. He continued to deduce. This time, Yu's target was a profound sage-level disciple of Shenzhen. Profound sage, ancient sage, sage monarch, and so on were all successfully deduced. In the end, Yu made a final attempt to deduce his doppelganger. In fact, Yu's main body and doppelganger could know where the other was and what they were doing at any time. However, they didn't always keep in touch. After all, that also consumed the power of his mind. His doppelganger is in seclusion again? With his strength, he is probably going to enter the holy list, right? It was unknown whether it was because the doppelganger had something to do with Yu, but this time it was easily deduced. In the deduction, Yu found that his doppelganger was in seclusion, and his strength was comparable to that of a powerhouse on the holy list. In order to verify the correctness of his deduction, Yu immediately contacted his doppelganger. Sure enough, it was correct. Now let's deduce Feng Sangxiong. Feng Sangxiong, you'd better not be near the Big Dipper Mountain. Otherwise, your nightmare will begin. Yu sneered in his heart and began to deduce Feng Sangxiong. However, Feng Sangxiong's strength was extremely powerful, and Yu's deduction was very important. During this process, Yu even found that his mental power was rapidly being consumed. If it weren't for the fact that his soul sea was extremely huge and could continuously replenish his mental power at any time, his mental power would have been exhausted long ago. In Big Dipper City, Feng Sangxiong, who had changed his appearance, was sitting cross-legged in a house. These days, he had been constantly capturing the primal chaos ancestor sages of the Human Race Alliance with the purpose of forcing Yu out. He wanted to capture the powerhouses on the holy list. However, the powerhouses of the Human Race Alliance hadn't appeared at all, so he had no idea where to start. However, he believed that as long as he captured more powerhouses of the Human Race Alliance, Yu would appear. Suddenly, a hint of warning appeared in Feng Sangxiong's heart. However, at first, he didn't notice this flash of warning, because no one could recognize his identity at all. Therefore, he wouldn't be discovered. However, after that hint of warning appeared, the warning in his heart became more and more intense. In the end, he even felt that someone was peeping at him. On the other hand, it was as if someone had seen through him completely. This time, Feng Sangxiong finally couldn't sit still. Just as he was about to react, the warning signs disappeared into thin air. Everything seemed to have never happened. Feng Sangxiong's incomparably huge spiritual sense quickly spread out and enveloped the entire Big Dipper City. However, there was still no discovery. Could it be that I'm hallucinating? Feng Sangxiong shook his head. His face was full of doubts. However, with his strength, it was basically impossible for hallucinations to occur. Not good. Could it be that I've been targeted by a powerhouse? Could it be Dongmin Li Xuan? Feng Sangxiong's face changed abruptly. After thinking of this, Feng Sangxiong didn't hesitate and took a step forward to leave this place. After all, with his strength, even if he had a supreme weapon, he would absolutely not be Dongmin Li Xuan's opponent. Just when Feng Sangxiong's figure swayed and was about to leave this place, a giant sword suddenly split the sky and ruthlessly smashed down on Feng Sangxiong. Feng Sangxiong, die for me. A violent roar came. At the same time, Yu's figure had also appeared in the sky. He stepped on the void and ruthlessly stomped down on Feng Sangxiong. Chapter 1723. Boom. After all, Feng Sangxiong was an expert ranked 11th on the Saint ranking. In a hurry, the phoenix plume nether spear in his hand pierced through the air. It directly collided with the Xian Yuan sword that was slashing down. After the earth-shattering noise, the phoenix plume nether spear couldn't withstand a single blow and was directly sent flying. There were many reasons for this result. One reason was that Yu had been accumulating power for a long time, while Feng Sangxiong only counterattacked in a hurry. Another reason was that Yu's current strength was much stronger than Feng Sangxiong's. Moreover, the Phoenix Plume Netherworld Spear was only a sovereign weapon, even though it was quite powerful. Although it was very powerful, the essence of a Xian Yuan sword was a ruler's weapon. Although it was still a broken and incomplete ruler's weapon, it was still much stronger than a supreme tool. Therefore, in the collision, Feng Sanxiong was directly sent flying. He was in a very sorry state. And Murong Yu's Xian Yuan sword only paused for a moment before it continued to slash at Feng Sanxiong. Rumble. Just as Feng Sanxiong was sent flying, Murong Yu's big foot had already shattered the void and directly stomped on Feng Sanxiong's head. A terrifying power erupted at this moment and gushed out from Murong Yu's foot. Suddenly, Feng Sanxiong let out a shrill scream of Yisheng. His entire body was instantly crushed and turned into a cloud of blood mist that exploded in the void. However, Feng Sanxiong's soul took the opportunity to escape. Murong Yu gave a cold snort and used his Saint's Soul Slash to slash at Feng Sanxiong. But just as Feng Sanxiong's soul was about to be annihilated, the Phoenix Plume Nether Spear burst out a dazzling 5-colored holy light and wrapped around Feng Sanxiong's soul. Then, the long spear trembled violently and pierced through the sky, turning into a 5-colored streamer and flew towards the distance. Murong Yu's Saint's Soul Slash actually missed. "Where do you think you're going?" Murong Yu roared. Using the army character formula, his speed instantly skyrocketed. His figure instantly disappeared from the spot, smashed the void, locked onto Feng Sanxiong, and chased after him. During this process, Murong Yu slashed out one Saint's Soul Slash after another in an attempt to annihilate Feng Sanxiong's soul. However, in less than 1/10 of a breath's time, Feng Sanxiong had already recovered his physical body. "Murong Yu, it's you." Feng Sanxiong displayed his fastest speed and quickly avoided Murong Yu's round of attacks. Only then did he stand in the air with the Phoenix Plume Nether Spear in his hand and looked at Murong Yu with gritted teeth. Feng Sanxiong originally thought that he was targeted by Dongmen Li Xuan. However, what he didn't expect was that the person targeting him wasn't Dongmen Li Xuan, but Murong Yu, the person he wanted to kill. However, what he couldn't believe was why did Murong Yu's strength suddenly become so powerful? One must know that before this, although Murong Yu was powerful, there was still a gap between him and the 11th on the saint list. Although, with the help of the Xian Yuan sword, Murong Yu's strength was comparable to his after he used the Phoenix Plume Nether Spear, but it was only comparable. But today, Feng Sanxiong clearly felt that Murong Yu was stronger than him. Previously, when he was weaker than him, he was comparable to him with the help of the Xian Yuan sword. But now, Murong Yu is definitely stronger than him. This must be because of the chaotic celestial body physique. Feng Sanxiong pondered in his heart as he looked at Murong Yu with intense greed in his eyes. He attributed all of this to the physique of the chaotic celestial body. "Feng Sanxiong, you have repeatedly gone against me. Recently, you even shamelessly sneak attack the ordinary saints of my human race Grand Alliance. The face of the experts on the saint list has been completely lost by you. I'm simply ashamed to be associated with you." Murong Yu's voice was flat, but it spread far and wide. It covered the Big Dipper Mountain and even more surrounding cities. Feng Sanxiong's face was livid. After Murong Yu said these words, he lost all his face. He lost the face of the Feng clan. However, in order to seize Murong Yu's body and kill Murong Yu, this was nothing. Now, Feng Sanxiong had lost his former calmness when facing Murong Yu. Instead, he became shameless and spared no expense. Die! Without giving Feng Sanxiong a chance to defend himself, Murong Yu roared and attacked Feng Sanxiong with the Xian Yuan sword in his hand. Feng Sanxiong snorted coldly. With the Phoenix Plume Nether Spear in his hand, he rushed forward and fought with Murong Yu. With the power of the supreme weapon in his hand, Feng Sanxiong's strength was comparable to the 4th and 5th on the saint list. Before, Murong Yu's strength was about the same as his. But now, after Murong Yu's strength had improved greatly, he already had the power to fight with the 3rd place on the saint list. Although it was only a difference of 1 rank, the gap between the 3rd and 4th place was huge. Therefore, Murong Yu and Feng Sanxiong's attacks were also huge. At the beginning of the battle, Murong Yu was suppressing Feng Sanxiong. However, Feng Sanxiong wasn't an ordinary person after all. His strength was beyond the understanding of most people. Murongyu might be able to suppress him, but he wasn't able to quickly kill him. The reason why he could destroy Feng Sanxiong's body in an instant, that was because he took advantage of a sneak attack. Deduction of heaven's secrets. That's right, Murongyu was still deducing this battle when he was fighting. It should be known that the deduction of heaven's secrets required a huge amount of mental power, especially in this kind of situation where one was deducing while fighting. However, benefiting from his own huge soul power, although Murongyu was somewhat strenuous and unaccustomed to it at the beginning, he soon could control it freely like moving clouds and flowing water. However, at the beginning, Murongyu didn't deduce anything. It was just that as he continued to work hard, he became more and more proficient. Therefore, the scene of his battle with Feng Sanxiong gradually began to appear in his mind. Suddenly, Feng Sanxiong's spear stabbed out from an extremely strange angle. At this time, a sneer flashed across Feng Sanxiong's face. When a spear was shot out from this angle, by the time Murongyu reacted, it would be too late. It would definitely be able to injure him severely. However, what shocked Feng Sanxiong was that Murongyu seemed to have prepared for it long ago. Just at the moment when his spear stabbed out, Murongyu had already made preparations and made Feng Sanxiong's attack miss. If this was only an occasional situation, Feng Sanxiong wouldn't be shocked. After all, there were coincidences in things. But what if it was always like this? Was this still a coincidence? It wasn't a coincidence, but a preemptive strike. Feng Sanxiong was shocked to discover that Murongyu seemed to have already known his every move. Before he made a move, Murongyu had already dodged. His attack couldn't even touch the corner of Murongyu's clothes. This wasn't what made Feng Sanxiong the most aggrieved. What Feng Sanxiong felt the most aggrieved was that he didn't know what was going on. Every time he wanted to avoid Murongyu's attack, he seemed to automatically send himself to be attacked by Murongyu. Even there were several times when Feng Sanxiong was almost killed by Murongyu. If it wasn't for the Phoenix Plume Nether Spear being really powerful, he would have been killed long ago. However, it wasn't any better now. Attack? He couldn't even touch the corner of Murongyu's clothes. Dodge? Not only couldn't he dodge, but it was as if he was sending himself to be attacked by Murongyu. If this continued, it was only a matter of time before he was killed. This made Feng Sanxiong very aggrieved. This kind of battle was really disgusting. It was different from Feng Sanxiong's aggrieved and disgusted feeling. Murongyu, on the other hand, was fighting with ease. Why could it cause such an effect? It was because of the divination of heaven's secret. Murongyu was divining heaven's secret while fighting. He had even deduced how Feng Sanxiong would make his move and dodge in advance. Therefore, Murongyu only needed to dodge or attack one step in advance. This way, Feng Sanxiong would be at his wit's end. This was no longer suppressing him, but toying with him. Feng Sanxiong, you must die today. After fighting for half a day, Murongyu became more and more proficient in this kind of battle state. Therefore, in coordination with the divination of heaven's secret, he launched all kinds of unique skills. Soul attack, time attack, space attack, all kinds of killing moves were launched. For a moment, Feng Sanxiong was battered and exhausted, struggling to move. He was in danger again and again. However, the Phoenix Plume Nether Spear was really powerful. Whether it was space imprisonment or time freezing, it couldn't be imprisoned or frozen at all. As long as the spear stabbed out, Murongyu's attacks would be shattered. Feng Sanxiong was bombarded by the dense and impenetrable attacks until he almost couldn't breathe. In just a few short moments, countless bone-deep wounds had appeared on his body. These wounds were so deep that even his bones could be seen. As for his soul, it was constantly being slashed and injured. Even so, it was still somewhat difficult for Murongyu to kill him. After all, this was just a strength increase with the help of the Xin Yuan sword. If Murongyu had the strength of the third place on the saint list, he could easily kill Feng Sanxiong. Reverse time and space. In the middle of the battle, Murongyu suddenly shouted in his heart. Then, his figure suddenly disappeared. What's going on? Seeing this scene, Everyone watching the battle was shocked. And Feng Sanxiong was even more surprised, because he found that Murong Yu really seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Even his aura didn't remain. This was definitely Murong Yu's conspiracy. Feng Sanxiong was on guard, but he didn't escape. This was because he had already determined that this was Murong Yu's conspiracy, a conspiracy to kill him. In fact, this wasn't Murong Yu's conspiracy. It was because Murong Yu suddenly had a whim and suddenly sent him back to the previous time and space. Swish! Using the ability to reverse time and space, Murong Yu returned to half a day ago. After reversing time and space, Murong Yu saw that he was suppressing Feng Sanxiong half a day ago. Without any hesitation, Murong Yu, who had reversed time and space later, took a step forward and unleashed his strongest attack at Feng Sanxiong. This was equivalent to two Murong Yu with the same strength and the same treasure attacking Feng Sanxiong. One Murong Yu almost killed Feng Sanxiong, let alone two. Plop! Shortly after Murong Yu disappeared, Feng Sanxiong, who was originally standing in the sky with a vigilant face, suddenly fell from the void. His body was rapidly rotting away as he fell from the sky. Chapter 17:24. In just a few breaths of time, Feng Sanxiong had already disappeared without a trace. Some experts even discovered that there was no aura of Feng Sanxiong at the place where he was originally at. He didn't disappear, but was gone. It was as if he had never existed. If they hadn't seen Feng Sanxiong suddenly die from his original living appearance, if they hadn't seen Mu Feng Sanxiong's phoenix plume nether spear break through the sky after Feng Sanxiong died, they would have suspected whether what they saw was an illusion. Even so, many people thought that they were hallucinating. However, when they found out that everyone was like this, they believed that what they saw was the truth. However, what was going on? First, Murong Yu disappeared into thin air, followed by Feng Sanxiong. For a moment, a huge question mark appeared in everyone's heart. It couldn't be helped. The matter was too strange and had exceeded the scope of their acceptance and imagination. In fact, there weren't many people in the holy world who could answer their doubts. Isn't that Murong Yu? Why did he come out? Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the crowd. At the same time, many people saw Murong Yu step out of the void. At this time, Murong Yu gave everyone a very special feeling. Murong Yu seemed to have crossed time and space from the immemorial era. There was an aura on his body that was incompatible with him. In fact, they really guessed it right. However, Murong Yu didn't cross time and space from the immemorial era, but in the first half of the day. One should know that Murong Yu had reversed time and space and returned a half a day ago. At that time, Murong Yu discovered that even if he returned a half a day ago, he could still exist. He could even fight. At that time, Murong Yu watched him fight with Feng Sanxiong for half a day, and he felt very strange. He was the person involved and also an outsider. Who had ever experienced this feeling? However, Murong Yu's purpose of reversing time and space wasn't to watch him fight, but to kill Feng Sanxiong. Therefore, he directly took action. How could Feng Sanxiong be the opponent of two Murong Yu? It didn't take long for him to be killed by Murong Yu. Just after Feng Sanxiong was killed, the scene of Feng Sanxiong's body festering and dying appeared in the real time and space. This was because Feng Sanxiong had already died half a day ago. Therefore, he would not continue to exist for the latter half of his life. Naturally, the power of heaven and earth would wipe out any remaining aura. Murong Yu was pleasantly surprised when he realized that his sudden idea had actually succeeded. However, he also felt that he was lucky. If he couldn't kill Feng Sanxiong within half a day, he would return to the later time. Would there be two Murong Yu at that time? Or would one of them be directly killed? If one of them was killed, would the other continue to exist? Would it also disappear quickly? In the future, I have to find the right time. If I can't kill it, I have to come back in advance. Otherwise, I'm afraid something bad will happen. Murong Yu muttered in his heart and glanced at the crowd. Everyone disperse. There's nothing to see. Alliance Master, that Feng Sanxiong was really killed by you? A disciple of the Human Alliance boldly asked. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.